Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Now. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Now.
Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. What a week. The political bullshit, it just never fucking stops, does it? Thank you all so much for joining. It's wonderful to see everybody and try to get away from all of that and do what we do best, which today involves traveling to alternate dimensions, apparently. It should be fun. As per usual, I haven't actually watched the video that we'll be looking at today, but it is a long one. And today we have the unusual opportunity to go long because due to circumstances beyond control, Maya can't do Bad Science Sunday today. So we have the opportunity to go long. I have set up a goal for the live chat. If we meet the goal, we'll go into overtime. We'll do an extended edition. It'll be pretty neat. And on that note, somebody's getting a head start on me. Miranda Rensberger, thank you so much. Sends $10 overtime. Yes, please. So that's a hell of a way to start. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's see. There's so much going on. So the morning shows are going fairly well. If you're not aware, I've been doing a morning show right after Chris Mallard's show from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. And many of the gals from Java and Jugs have been popping in and out. It's been tremendous fun. And we have a busy week lined up. Monday is healthcare. Shoot, let me just look. I'll just look. It'll be easier. Okay. So Monday, we've got malicious meddling in medicine. Tuesday, forbidden adult fun time. Wednesday is there truth in the Bible? Thursday, intersex topics. And I have a better title for it. It's not important, but intersex stuff never gets talked about, and it's been annoying me, so I want to talk about it. And then Friday, we've got Feminism Friday, which in this case is mandatory modesty, because Alan Parr is going to drop by and tell us all about how we have to give up yoga pants, among other things. It should be delightful, and I hope you join for all of those things. I also hope you join if you're watching this now or in the future. Hello, future people. I hope you'll subscribe, ring the bell, and join us for future live shows so you can hang out with us in the live chat, because that's why I do live shows, because I love interacting with the live chat. People like Miranda and Bree from Hive Psi, who's over here buzzing away, and Sapphire Light, who is boogieing to the intro theme. You are Victoria. Hello, hello. Spooky Bed Hair. You know, I'm one of Spooky's biggest fans. And Lizzie Lee. Hell yeah. If other universes exist, I want to go to the one where I'm a blue-haired anime girl. Okay. I mean, why not? Although I suppose, never mind. I was going to say you could kind of do that now, but it gets expensive. Details, though. Details. All right. Let's see. Like I said, it's a long video. I could go on about a whole lot of things, as I'm sure you're aware, but I'm trying not to think about several of the heavier topics that are in the zeitgeist at the moment. But I did break out this. This is my second dress that I ever bought. Can you tell it's from a thrift store? But because we're going to alternate dimensions, I figured something a little, flashier and sci-fi might be called for. And it's been a while since I wore this thing. So yeah, let's do this. Let's pull up the video. Let's have ourselves a look. And oh no, I'm tiny. Why am I tiny? I don't need to be tiny. I mean, I could be tiny. I could be very small. I could be a little bit. It's fine. Okay, let's see what we've got going on here, shall we? Oh, one other note. I also have a poll running in the live chat because there's so many other shows running on Sunday nights now. It's definitely hurting viewership. And so I realize there's a selection bias. The people who are here are going to be the ones who are able to vote on what time slot would be best. But I still want some outside information. Should I move it to earlier in the day, like between Talk Heathen and AXP? Should I move it to like morning? Should I move it to a different day entirely? Because you may recall, if you've been around for a little while, the main reason this show is when it is I had it slightly earlier in the day. I would go live right after AXP wrapped because there was nothing. But we gradually got later and later so that I could be on while Maya was getting ready. But now there's a bunch of other shows on at the same time. So I don't know. But I'm not averse to keeping it here either. I just like some information so I know like how I can best serve you folks, because that's why we're here, right? I could just talk to myself offline. All right. Your Victoria says, is the other universe black and white? It's possible. It might be. It might be that just our color receptors don't work there for whatever reason. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's go.
A plane vanishes in 1955 and then lands 37 years later. The world's biggest particle collider might have cracked open reality itself, and people swear things have felt off ever since. And is it possible that we're all immortal? I'll explain later. These are disturbing signs that you're already living in a parallel universe. Is it possible that...
Okay, so those are interesting things, but how would any of those indicate we're living in a parallel universe? The super collider thing, he may be onto something. I've heard a few different sci-fi stories that run down a similar line. Not so much that the super collider did it, but that there are several parallel universes simultaneously, and if we fail to do certain rituals to keep our timeline intact, it decays, and then we all get kind of bumped over into the next closest timeline. and merge with our alternate selves, which is why the Mandela effect happens. It totally makes sense, probably. And Jur says, go on Wild Talk Heathen or AXP Live, so those of us who don't want to watch those shows have something to watch. That is a great idea, actually. Like, the other Sunday shows earlier in the day get huge viewership, and I didn't want to try to compete with that because it would make me feel sad if I had 2 viewers and they had 2,000. But it could well be that many of the people watching those are watching those because there isn't a viable alternative. There isn't something that isn't a call-in show. So I will keep that under my hats. And I do say hats because I'm wearing 2 hats tonight. I don't know if you can tell. This hat, it touches my ears, and my ears are still very, very upset. Things are not going well, medically speaking, when it comes to the ear infections. So to keep the hat from touching my ears, I have a second hat underneath, holding it up a little bit higher. It's fun. Adventures and not having medical care. Yay.
We're all immortal. Not in the way that you'll never age or anything like that, but in a more like you'll never die kind of way. It's called quantum immortality, and it's one of the weirder consequences of quantum physics.
Is that a consequence of quantum physics? I don't think that is a consequence. Like, how could you age but never die? That sounds kind of unpleasant. I mean, we've all seen really, really old people on video or TV, if not in person. And if a 120-year-old person is having trouble, imagine how unpleasant it would be to be 1,000 if you continue aging. Holy shit.
Basic idea. Most of us have probably heard of the theory that multiple realities form from every decision we make, every situation we find ourselves in.
Oh, goodness, that's not how that works. There's a few different interpretations. First of all, we don't know that there are other universes. But, if I flip a coin, you're not going to get 2 universes, one where it comes up heads and one where it comes up tails. There is not enough energy in a coin flip to generate an entire additional universe where everything's the same except that one head flip. It doesn't make any damn sense. So that only works if you're not paying any attention, if you're not thinking about it, if you're not questioning it. There is an alternative possibility that both universes exist, and which one is real is determined by the coin flip. They're there, but there's no reality to them. And then the coin flip is sort of like a switch track, and it determines which one of those 2 possible universes reality branches down. But the track is already there. That sort of thing. That one, it makes more sense on a conceptual level, but it's not exactly what you'd call a consequence of quantum physics.
Quantum mechanics, there's a theory that every time something happens, the universe splits, creating a parallel universe where things went the other way. For example, let's say you're walking across the street and you nearly get hit by a bus. Close call. Well, in another reality, the bus didn't miss. In another, you were nowhere near it. In another, the bus didn't even show up. Now, you, the observer, are at the center of your...
I really dislike hypotheses along these lines because they're so neurotic. They're so you-centered. Like, you don't get a whole other universe based on whether the bus missed you or didn't. It's not about you, right? Like, you're just as important to the universe as every other clump of matter, possibly more so than most, because you have the ability to make decisions, to move other bits of matter around and things. And that's pretty fucking amazing. But, like, nobody thinks about if that's true for you, it means it's also true for the guy down the street who almost got hit by a bus. He gets his own special universe. Or the person across town who almost got hit by a taxi. They get their own special universe. And every other one of the 8 billion humans on Earth, plus all the insects, and it just gets really ridiculous really fast. But you know what never gets ridiculous? A super chat from Sapphire Light for $5. Thank you so much. And says, I come from another reality where Dapper Dinosaur wears his monocle on the left, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel is a collection of stoats in a lab coat. It sounds interesting. Miranda says, has Kip Davis written any books in that universe? Oh, it's the best. I love it. I love it.
Own timeline. Here's where the immortality aspect comes in. If you can't observe a version of the universe where you're dead, you'll always end up in the one where you survive. That means every time you should have died, you just didn't. At least you don't experience the version where you did.
Now that's an interesting idea, that all these universes are running simultaneously. And in every one where you die, you're no longer there to observe that universe. So wherever your awareness is, it's in a universe where you haven't died. And that just kind of follows. It's sort of a play on the anthropic principle. You can only observe a universe with conditions that you are able to exist in to do the observing from. And there's another idea that relates to quantum physics, but it's more along the lines of psychology insofar as it's like consciousness studies. And that's the concept of the closest continuer. And what that one is basically, to keep it simple, is it's a solution to the teleporter paradox. Your consciousness will persist in the next closest match to your brain, right? Because brains generate consciousness, but it's not just the physical component of the brain. It's not just the matter component of the brain, to be more precise. There's also the brain waves. There's also the chemicals moving through your bloodstream that are influencing your mood and potentially your thoughts and various things like that. So it's not just the neurons, I suppose, would be a better way to phrase that. So if something happens to your body and you have a clone in the closet, it's not quite the same because it doesn't have exactly the same cocktail of chemicals. The brainwave pattern probably isn't synced up, whatever. But your perception of your consciousness would move to the clone because it's the next closest continuer. Or if you used a teleporter, you know, your body ceases to exist, but a new body appears on the starship up in space. Your consciousness seems to just move all the way across and instantaneously, because it's the next closest continuer. The defeater to that proposal, though, is children. Because when you die, your children are the next closest match to you. And we don't see any effect happen of, you know, a quantum consciousness or something jumping into the body of a child and overwriting their existing consciousness or merging with it or whatever. It's never been observed. It's one of those baseless, kind of unfalsifiable, but also already has been falsified concepts. But it's very hard to kill woo-woo entirely, you know?
Your point of view, you'll always wake up in the version of reality where you lived. Sure, other people might attend your funeral in their timelines, or the ones you used to be in, but you never actually experience death. You just keep shifting into the universe where you dodge the bullet. Now, I'm not exactly sure where...
There's a non-zero possibility that we never experience death, depending on the nature of the death and so on and so forth. Like I've spoken before how we've observed in people going through the process of dying. One of the components is a chemical signal that causes the neurons to detach from each other. It literally dissolves your consciousness. So you cannot be present to experience your death. There are exceptions to that, however. For example, an explosion where death is very sudden and the neurons don't have time to detach. In some of those, the neurons are forcibly detached from each other and your consciousness winks out in an instant. But that isn't always the case. So it's hard to say. Yeah. Rochester Swift says, considering all the calls for what are basically pogroms, I do hope you're taking steps to protect yourself, Ember. That's one of the things I'm a little worried about. I do have some defense capabilities. I don't want to say online what they are because I have had death threats before, even before things started getting intense. I've had people act on those death threats before, even before things started getting intense. So I don't want information out there that people might use to formulate a plan to get around my defenses. Needless to say, I don't exactly have a private army, but I'm doing what I reasonably can. And I feel like while it won't protect me from everything, it makes me safer than not doing so. You know, it's one of those better to have it and not need it situations. If if that makes sense. It probably doesn't. I need more coffee.
Old age comes into this? I mean, eventually we all do die, right? But I don't know, maybe reincarnation plays into this somehow? Look, it's totally unprovable, but it's a neat idea. And at the very least, maybe there's a version of all of our lives where we make it to 100 and pass away peacefully in bed, rather than dying in some awful accident or something. Pan Am Flight...
I mean, maybe. But I mean, what if we could jump universes with technology or something, and then we go to a universe where we had died 20 years ago or something? It could get interesting. It could get weird, but it could get interesting. Left-Handed Jedi says, what if our consciousness is quantum entangled with other universes? This is a fascinating thought from my point of view. It seems to explain certain things, like why we have sudden moods or intuitions. Are these just random byproducts of an unpredictable, chaotic brain, or is there an influence from our linked instances of consciousness in other universes? When we seem to know something, when we experience deja vu, when we have a sudden flash of inspiration, could this be a sign of some input or stimulus making its way from another universe across some kind of entanglement link? I mean, probably not, but maybe. It's a fun idea anyway. Oh, goodness. Sapphire says, I imagine Ember is always armed with a portable mini nuke launcher. Not quite that severe. Although, now that you mention it, I'm kind of wondering if I could. Like, obviously, it wouldn't be anything close to legal, but for certain values of nuke, I'm pretty sure I could. Like, there's, I shouldn't say something that's going to get me put on a list. Let's just say the magnetrons in your microwaves at home don't have to only produce microwave band radiation. And I'll just leave it at that.
914 is a story that keeps getting passed around because, real or not, it's an interesting story. A Pan Am Douglas DC-4 with 62 people on board took off from New York, headed to Miami on July 2nd of 1955. It vanished. Radio contact was lost, and it was presumed to have crashed. But then something weird happens, just not for another 37 years. In 1992,
and then 37 years later, something weird happens. Oh, goodness. Angier says, I observed an adult's consciousness supplanting a child's in the documentary Freaky Friday. Geez, Ember, read a fucking book. In fairness, though, that was a switch, right? Like, the child overwrote the adults, too. It was a total protonic reversal. So much so that it happened twice, apparently.
same plane allegedly appeared out of nowhere on the radar of an airport in Venezuela. Air traffic control made contact and the pilot sounded confused, saying they were en route to Miami and due to land at 9:55 a.m., as if no time had passed. The story goes there were witnesses who said the tower told the pilot where he was, which reportedly...
The story goes there were witnesses. But I mean, are we talking, you know, 500 witnesses? I have here a list of names kind of thing, or like, are there witnesses? Like, a story saying there's witnesses is not the same as there being witnesses. Can we talk to some of them? I mean, if these people existed 37 years later, why are they not world famous? Hey, we slipped through time. Now we're on Oprah or whatever. Like, the fuck do you mean?
It freaked him out. He supposedly panicked, restarted the engines, and took off again before anyone could stop him. The plane eventually landed in Miami shortly afterward, but authorities supposedly kept the incident quiet. Some versions of the story...
How do you keep that quiet? A time-traveling airplane that crossed decades. like I might get it that they might be able to bully the media into not caring, because there's a lot of things that happen that we never hear about because the media, for their own reasons or government-based reasons or whatever reasons, just don't report on a story that you might think would change the fucking world. Who's to say? But to keep people from being aware of it entirely is a bit of a reach. And if they succeeded, then where the fuck does this story come from then?
Say the passengers were dazed, carrying outdated newspapers and IDs with no idea that they just jumped forward in time. But is this just an urban legend, or did something actually unexplainable happen that was quickly covered up? The Large Hadron
and we're just going to move on to the next thing, I guess. This video is over an hour long. Like, are we just going to jump from one short story to another? It's very peculiar. It's so weird. I just opened a Google window so I could try to do a search. And the Google Doodle for today looks like it says giggle. Whatever. I'm not getting into that. That's a conspiracy for another day. Let's see. What Pan Am flight that traveled 37 years. That's a long flight. They should get some frequency flyer miles or something. Let's see. Origin of the myth. Weekly World News. So for anybody who doesn't remember Weekly World News, that was like a grocery store checkout line tabloid that had stuff like Bat Boy storms Paris or something like that. It just like it was so tabloidy that it was like it was known to be satire. They put the most ridiculous things on their front page they could possibly think of. That's amazing.
Collider has been at the center of multiple wild theories ever since it switched on in 2008. Officially, it's a massive particle accelerator built.
Oh, it was the center of conspiracy theories before it even turned on. Remember all the people saying, oh, they're going to create a black hole that'll just destroy the whole universe somehow, for some reason.
By the European Organization for Nuclear Research, or CERN. It was created to smash atoms together at insane speeds in order to study the makeup of the universe.
It's not insane. They're not even up to light speed. What do you mean?
But there are plenty of people who think that something very strange happened when this thing was switched on, that a sort of Pandora's box was unleashed. One theory is that when the LHC fired up, there was this shift.
Ooh, where'd he get his stock footage? You know how in my intro there's that traveling through the warped cosmos and things, and well, his wormhole is better than my wormhole. I want that wormhole.
That it either created a parallel universe or blended ours with another. The timing does kind of line up with when people started reporting strange phenomena on a big scale. The Mandela effect, for example, really exploded in popularity around the same time, but people also...
The Mandela effect, famously named for an event that happened before 2008. In fact, awareness of the Mandela effect started to become a thing in the early days of widespread internet access, the AOL days, because suddenly people had the internet and could talk to people from all over the place and tell each other all kinds of crazy things behind anonymous usernames. But clearly, it's all about CERN.
Also started sharing more personal stories on internet forums about how time just didn't seem to be moving right anymore, or how reality felt off in subtle ways they couldn't quite explain. And it didn't help that in 2016, CERN released a video of
aging. That's called aging. The flow of time seems to move at different rates, partly based on our mood, you know, time flies when you're having fun, but also based on our total life experience. Like when you're very small, a month makes up a significant percentage of your total life experience. When you're a little older, a month is a lot less significant. So while day to day, your time sense may have a different interpretation on a longer scale, like a month, time seems to keep moving faster and faster the older we get. It's weird, but it's a known phenomenon. But also, the world feeling different from how it did when you were younger is a result of growing up. Like, I mean, as a person who's gone through a whole lot of hormonal changes at different points in my life, it's not just a little kid turning into an adult. At different phases in life, your body is constantly changing. And it's not just hormones, but that's a great example. Like you can go from, say, not liking cheesecake to thinking cheesecake is amazing. The total qualia of your life gets affected in the same way. Sometimes life feels better and sometimes it doesn't. And it depends on a whole vast array of factors. It's just continuing to be alive.
What looked like a human sacrifice ritual taking place on their grounds, which they later said was a prank. And do I believe that? Yeah, first of all, I just think that's a funny idea. I love that they went there. And I also just don't think there was a genuine ritual sacrifice captured on camera here. For anyone who was already skeptical, though, they were even more skeptical after this. But what do you think?
A human sacrifice. Actually, there was kind of a human sacrifice at CERN. It wasn't like presided over by pagan high priests and burning people at the stake and all that. It was a scientist who was working on the curve of the collider, the accelerator part. And I guess he didn't realize that the proton beam was still on. So he stuck his head into the tube, and his head got passed through by protons that were moving at nearly light speed. And while he didn't really notice much at the time, it did a lot of damage, and he eventually died. So yeah, the collider is murderous. I mean, it's not the collider per se. Any beam of protons moving near the speed of light would have the same effect. Maybe don't stick your head in the beam. It's good advice for all of us, you know.
Have you noticed weird shifts in your reality since 2008? I'll give you this, it is a weirder world we're living in. A woman named Pam Reynolds was brain dead for over an hour. Somehow, she came back describing things she couldn't have possibly known. In 1991, Reynolds underwent a rare procedure called a standstill operation to remove a brain aneurysm. Her body temperature was lowered significantly, her heartbeat and brain activity were completely stopped, and her eyes were taped shut. She was clinically dead, and yet, after she was revived, she gave eerily accurate descriptions.
Why were her eyes taped shut if her biofunctions were turned off? Like, if you have no brain activity and no heart rate, there is zero chance you're going to blink. And also, who cares if you blink? Like, what is this story?
Of the operating room. She even described the exact surgical tools being used and recounted conversations between doctors. That's because when she was under, she claimed that she floated out of her body and saw herself laying on the table before being pulled toward a tunnel of light. She said she met dead relatives there who communicated with her without speaking, and that she needed to be convinced to return to her body, which of course she did. But what exactly happened here? How could someone with no brain function, no sensory input, describe real-time events in such clear detail? Till this day, there's never been a
I'm not familiar with that particular NDE experience that seems to combine both the out-of-body component and the tunnel of light and the meeting of relatives and all. It's all the NDEs put together. And whatever. Specific details really don't matter that much to me because, as I've said before, I've had an NDE myself. The brain produces weird effects when you're in that kind of state. And until I hear someone describe an NDE that matches my own, the only conclusion I can reach is that it's stuff produced by the brain. We're not observing some kind of objective alternate level of reality or something because nobody agrees on what the hell is on the other side. That's just my take, though. Miranda says they tape your eyes shut during surgery so they don't fall open and dry out too much. Okay, that makes sense. Holy shit. That would suck. You wake up, you've got holes in your skull, your scalp is stapled on. You feel like crap because you've just been through a major surgery. You feel like extra crap because you've been clinically dead for a few hours. And then on top of that, your eyeballs are dry. Fuck. I mean, dry to the point it causes damage. Like your corneas are all raisined up. And oh, yeah. Oh. Andrew said the same thing. They don't want your eyes to become jujubes. I don't like that mental image. I don't like that. Crispy eyeballs. Oh no.
Definitive explanation for this. Ong's Hat was a real village in New Jersey, now abandoned. In the late 80s, though, pamphlets and documents started surfacing claiming secret experiments happened there involving interdimensional travel. So a group called the Institute for Chaos Studies allegedly set up a lab in the Pine Barrens. There they built a device known as the Egg, a sensory deprivation pod meant to alter consciousness. The theory was that under the right conditions, the pod could shift someone into a parallel universe. Well,
That's interesting. So there's a book. Shoot, I can't quite think of the author's name because it's been a few years since I read it, but it's called Dark Matter. And it's not actually about dark matter, it's about using a sensory deprivation tank to slip through parallel universes. It's actually a pretty interesting story. The way they describe it is it's not so much sensory deprivation per se, but it's more like a Schrodinger superposition thing. Once you're sealed into the box, you can get no sensory information from outside. Like no sound, no light, no radiation, nothing gets through this box. So from your perspective as an objective observer or a subjective observer, whatever the case, you can't tell what universe you're in. And then they give you a drug that like loosens up your mind's grip on reality. It's sort of like a James Finney time travel tale in that respect. You know, it's your brain being gripped to this timeline that keeps you in this timeline. If you can loosen that up, you could conceivably move yourself to different points along the timeline. Similar thing, but sideways across universes. So you take the drug, and suddenly the box extends from your point of view, your perception. You can see across universes, and then you can walk from universe to universe. And it's only once you open a door that the superposition of the chain of worlds collapses and you open it onto a specific universe. It's pretty freaking wild. Now, that's just the mechanism for the storytelling. The actual story gets into some interesting drama, and all the fun usual alternate Earth stuff. You know, like one where there was a nuclear winter and another where there was a plague and all this. Why is it always disasters? Why is it never a utopia? You know, it's very strange, but the science was just the way that they got the story to go forward. But it was still an interesting idea. Mighty Filbert says, didn't Mork from Ork travel by egg? Possibly. It's been a very long time since I saw that show. Nanu. Yeah, it's been a very long time. Aunt Jur says that's the premise of the show Fringe. Fringe was fascinating. I don't remember if there's drugs involved, but with that one, there's only like one alternate universe. It's the flip side, the upside down, if you will, the anti-universe, whatever the case may be. But it is a fascinating show. Karen Butcher says this sounds like Sliders. Sliders was also a wonderful show. It got so screwed over by the networks. It could have been so much better. In a similar way, the science part of it was just the mechanism for the plot, but it was still a compelling, interesting thing. I really enjoyed that show, especially when they started running into the interdimensional empire of evil alternate not humans. Cro-Mags, I believe they called them. Shit was wild. I wish they'd been able to do more with the story arc rather than just the individual tales. But, you know, you get what you get with networks. Dr. Mordecai says, I smoked some weed and that happened to me. I mean, maybe. I've never had much luck with drugs, right? Like I've tried a few things and a few different times in my life, especially when I was younger. But I didn't experience the same sort of effect most people report. I have kind of wondered if I may have slipped into alternate universes from time to time, though. And sometimes it was little things, sometimes it was large things. It was all entirely the drug trip. But like I'd be with friends on the second floor of a building, and then we'd use, and then we were on the first floor of the building and always had been. That sort of weird little detail adjustment sort of thing. It's crazy. It's crazy shit. Left-Handed Jedi says there have been a few movies and TV shows about that. In fact, Dark Matter itself, as I understand it, was the basis for I think it was a TV show. Maybe it was like a mini series or something. I don't watch things. I only ever see films and whatnot when I'm with my son and he feels like watching a film instead of going through random YouTube, or we go for a walk or whatever. So I don't know. Oh, Karen Butcher says, yes, he traveled by egg. Mighty Filbert says, God, I'm old. Thanks, Ember. You're welcome, buddy. Always here to help. Oh, heck, like, hello. It says Fringe was such a good show, too. It was. A lot of people say it really started getting good around the second or third season, which is true for a lot of sci-fi. But I really liked the vibes of the first season. Like, it was good once it started developing that story arc. No, I'm not saying it got worse, but I liked the slightly off his rocker mad scientist messing with technology that nobody's touched since the 1900s. It really appealed to me, I don't know. I'm probably silly.
Supposedly, it worked. Some of the researchers vanished, remaining in some alternate version of Earth. These so-called documents circulated in zines and early internet forums. Nowadays, this is mostly seen as a hoax, and I'm sure a lot of people also saw it that way back then, but some still insist there was something strange actually going on here, that maybe, at the very least, the story was some sort of cover-up for actual experiments, with, fictional elements used to discredit anything and distract people from anything disturbing that was actually happening. I don't know.
Oh, that never happens. Oh, goodness. It's an interesting idea, I suppose, that, if other people are traveling between universes, does that do anything for you? Does it hurt you? I suppose if they go to a plague world and come back with a plague that we have no antibodies against, that could be very bad, but for the most part, shrug, It's like when a person goes on a vacation to another continent, they could come back with diseases you have no antibodies against. But mostly it doesn't really do anything for you one way or the other. But I don't know. Maybe I'm silly. Miranda says, I'm hearing a lot of claims and zero evidence so far. Bingo! People are like, Ember, you're a secularist advocate. You debunk conspiracy theories and creationist claims and religion more broadly and some of the socially regressive nonsense in our society. Why, Ember, do you spend time on silliness and woo-woo of this sort? Well, partly because it's a gateway to other conspiracy nonsense, but also partly because it's exactly the same evidential standard. People believe this weird woo-woo shit for the same reason they believe all the other nonsense, whether it's the moon landing was faked to the Bible is the infallible inerrant word of an all-powerful space wizard who really hates shellfish. It's all the same thing. And I try to illustrate that even when I don't expressly state that. But that's just me, and be fabulous while I'm at it.
What do you guys think of this one? Bold Street has become a rather infamous area in Liverpool, where dozens of people have claimed to experience time slips. One story goes that a young woman named Imogen had gone shopping for some things for her sister's new baby. As she walked toward the corner of Lord Street in Whitechapel, she was excited to see a new mother care store that she hadn't noticed before.
Ooh, I think I've heard this one. I think it was on an episode of Aaron Mahnke's Lore, which great podcast if you ever have time to listen to things. As you know, I was a professional driver for a very long time. I listened to a lot of audiobooks, but I would also listen to podcasts. And I found Aaron Mahnke's Lore. It's like old stories and urban legends and whatnot, but told in a very storytellery way, a vaguely spooky sort of vibe. It really, really appealed to me. And sometimes he would get into stories sort of like this, where a person would step into a store in like the 1950s, but the store they walked into was in the 1920s or the 1980s, or who the hell knows, and nobody knows why, and it's just a weird thing that, and that's the way those sorts of stories are told. There's sort of a genre to them, because it's somehow it seems to be like it's more believable if the person just shrugs and says, I don't know why. Like, it's just a weird thing that happened. I can't get it to happen again. Nobody believes me, so I gain nothing by telling you. So the fact I'm telling you anyway means I'm telling the truth, sort of thing. It's hard to say, though.
She browsed through items like baby cardigans and bibs, surprised at how cheap everything was. When she went to pay with her credit card at the front, the cashier looked confused and called the manager over. The manager turned and told Imogen that they didn't accept credit cards, only cash. Since she had none on her, Imogen left empty-handed, but when she told her mother what happened, her mom looked stunned. The Mother Care store had closed years ago, and the spot was now a bank, the very bank her mom used. And that's not the only weird story to come out of Bold Street. In 2000,
So it's kind of the same thing, but like, there's a very short period of time when credit cards existed, but merchants didn't accept them, you know, because it's like that old rule, make it as easy as possible for people to give you money, you know. Businesses that don't do that don't tend to stick around very long, but maybe that's why they closed. Who knows? As Sapphire Light says, who can understand the whims of the fates?
2006, a young man named Sean was caught shoplifting in Liverpool. While fleeing down Hanover Street, he turned into Brooks Alley, a dead end. As he caught his breath, he suddenly felt strange, like the air had thickened. He basically just waited for the security guard to follow, but no one came. Confused, Sean stepped back out into Hanover Street and instantly knew something was wrong. The street looked older. The cars were vintage. Roadworks he'd seen earlier were gone. People walked by in these outdated clothes, and there were traffic lights where there shouldn't be any. Sean pulled out his phone. There was no signal. He rushed towards Bold Street and spotted a newspaper stand. The date on the paper was May 18th, 1967. Terrified, Sean ran.
Ooh, 1967. Okay, vintage cars close out of date, but not that far out of date, so it's going to raise like major alarm bells. It's an interesting tale, though. But you know, it seems like every time traveler grabs a newspaper, and I get why they did it in movies, because it was something handy that you could hold up as a prop that the camera could see a date on. Stephen King did it in not with time travelers, but like, for example, in the Dark Tower stories, they go through a version of Earth where the plague killed everyone off, and they find a newspaper drifting on the breeze that has a date on it, and that was like the last newspaper, you know, so they know what the last date humans were able to print newspapers was, that sort of thing. It's very peculiar. As Equus points out, no signal on the cell phone, but what about the camera? Like, picture it didn't happen, buddy. It's fascinating. Many years ago, I came across a newspaper that had a date on it almost exactly 6 months into the future. And I took a picture of myself holding that newspaper with the date very visible on it and posted it on Facebook with the caption saying, so if you built a working time machine, how in the world would you demonstrate it to other people? And it was just me holding the newspaper with the date. Not a single fucking person got what I was doing. Like, I got like 3 likes on it, and somebody was like, you need a haircut. You know, like, I'm like, it was a golden opportunity just to be a silly bean, and like nobody would. Oh, it's frustrating sometimes. Maybe I'm too subtle.
Into a jewelry store where he pulled out his phone again, and this time it worked. Just like that, he was back in the present. Later, when he told his story to the local press, he repeated it in the exact same way every time. And while people assumed he made it up to dodge shoplifting charges, the newspaper followed up, and not only did they find his account consistent, but all the historical details he described, down to the clothes, the street layout, businesses, they were accurate for Liverpool in 1967.
Well, cool. If there was an investigative journalism story on it confirming it, show us. Show us the newspaper and what they said. And also, if he were trying to dodge shoplifting charges, why would he include the shoplifting part of the story? He could have just said, I was walking down the street, took a wrong turn, and suddenly I was in a time tunnel, you know?
Even the security guard kinda backed it up. He said when he chased Sean into Brooks Alley, the kid had simply vanished. On November 9th of 1986, Spanish industrial expert Pedro Olivia Ramirez was driving from Seville to Alcalá del Guadera late at night. He knew the road well, but suddenly after a curve, everything changed. The road widened into 3 massive lanes in each direction, surrounded by tall, strange buildings that he didn't recognize. On one
That is a refinery. I don't know if they have those in Spain, but that's not exactly like a strange alien structure kind of thing. Miranda asks, did the headline on the Future newspaper come true? I don't know if I ever looked, because it was such a huge disappointment. I just kind of like, just bleh, you know? I wonder if I can still find the photo, though. I don't know. I've deleted a lot of old photos from my Facebook for obvious reasons, but maybe I can find that one. I don't know.
side were huge glowing industrial buildings, on the other were these towering apartment buildings with 20 floors or so. None of it made sense, and things just got weirder from there. Pedro started to feel a wave of heat inside his car along with strange voices, almost like a distant choir. One voice told him he'd been transported to another country or possibly another planet by extra...
So he's hearing secret voices? But this is a weird story.
Terrestrials. And for the next couple hours he drove through this strange place, even stopping a couple times to walk along the roadside and study the odd grass and the bizarre traffic. Noticed that cars passed him every 8 minutes or so, like clockwork. Eventually, Pedro reached a road sign with directions to his home, or where he was coming from. Well, he chose to retrace his steps, but he suddenly found himself parked in front of his house, and he had no memory of how he got there. He tried to retrace his path, but the wide roads, the buildings, and the strange signs were gone now, and somehow the trip, which should have only taken him about 30 minutes, had lasted over 3 hours, and he'd burned way more fuel than normal. Over the last few decades, thousands of people have
that's that whole story. Okay, he burned more fuel. I mean, my car currently, I found some really cheap gas. It turns out it's like imported from Turkey or something, and it's probably not formulated correctly for my car, but it was cheap, and I'm very poor. So I tried out the cheap gas, and I'm burning more fuel than normal. I'm, you know, my car normally gets somewhere around 45 miles a gallon. I'm currently getting around 32. Not ideal, but it was very cheap gas. So, you know, hooray, I guess.
Vanished in national parks and forests across North America. Some of these cases are a lot stranger than others and share some eerie patterns. The person disappears suddenly, often in the middle of a group, only to be found, if they're found at all, in places that had already been searched, sometimes miles away, sometimes in impossible locations like high cliffs or extra dense parts of the woods that would be super hard to reach even with gear. And in some of these cases, the missing person reappears with zero memory of where they've been or how long they were gone. Former police officer David Paulides has been collecting these cases under what he calls Missing 411. He specifically...
Okay. I found a photo. I misremembered like it wasn't me holding it, it's just a close-up of the photo, of the newspaper, and all that's visible is the date. Let me see if I can make that slightly bigger. So I didn't actually include the headline. It was like several pages in on the newspaper. It wasn't like a headline thing. But my Canadian friend Darcy said, I can already tell it's a bleak future, more Apple bullshit. And that part kind of did come true. So there's that. But as you can see, it was posted June 29th of 2011, and it clearly says December 5th of 2011. So not quite 6 months out. But yay! Time travel confirmed. Probably. Oh, yeah.
Filters out incidents with logical explanations so that what's left are stories that truly don't make sense. In some reports, tracking dogs have refused to follow the scent or get visibly spooked. Clocks act strangely storm.
Tracking dogs. Oh my goodness. Okay, so dogs do have a better sense of smell than humans, but they're not freaking infallible. Again, I watched stuff with my son. He was over yesterday and we were watching random YouTube videos. And in one of them, a guy broke out of a prison, snuck into a backyard and hid in a garbage can. And the police came into that backyard and searched it with dogs. They didn't find him, even though he was right there in the garbage can. And they never thought to look. I mean, technically they can't just look, but like, when has the law ever stopped a police officer? Details. But like, none of the dogs picked up on the guy hiding in the trash can. They're not infallible. Holy shit.
Storms roll in out of nowhere, and in a few extreme examples, the person claimed they were watched or lured by something they couldn't quite explain. One theory is that these people aren't just getting lost, they're slipping through cracks in reality. In the early 80s, rumors started circulating about strange military experiments happening at
Have you or someone you love fallen through a crack in reality? You may be entitled to compensation.
Camp Hero, an old Air Force station in Montauk, New York. The story went that there was psychic testing going on, time travel, and
Oh, Montauk! We know about Montauk, don't we? Oh, goodness. So there's a whole bunch of conspiracy theories about Montauk, from UFO stuff to genetic breeding experiments and all sorts of things. It's, everything you can think of that could be mad science was mad scienced in Montauk, according to someone. It's wow, yeah.
the opening of gateways to other dimensions. A few people had come forward saying they'd been a part of it, either willingly or as kids who were abducted into the program. According to these accounts, the government was trying to weaponize the human mind. They supposedly succeeded in creating psychic soldiers who could manipulate.
I mean, the human mind is already kind of weaponized, right? Like, we can use it not only to design and build weapons, but we can also use it in a strategic or tactical sense. Like, for example, you're standing at the edge of a cliff, surrounded by soldiers armed with spears who are bent on killing you. And so you use your mind as a weapon to get them to charge at you and then sidestep. And I mean, technically you're weaponizing the cliff, but you're using your mind to do the weaponing. It just, never mind.
Objects, see and hear things that were going on from very distant locations, or even open dimensional rifts. There's one story where they allegedly...
Oh, I love the remote viewing thing where they're not just remote seeing like what the Martians are up to or whatever, but they're opening dimensional rifts. Like, if you're gonna make shit up, just go big with it. Why not?
Opened a portal too wide, and something came through, something not human. Supposedly, they shut the project down after that. Another account describes a time chair, which let people travel into the past or future, but often came with disorienting side effects. Of course,
Oh, the time chair story. I think I heard about that one on the Y-Files, which is sort of like Coast to Coast AM, except it's a YouTube show. It's a fun YouTube show, though. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm sure it's still out there because they were getting millions of views on their videos. And they're fun. They're very well produced. But I digress. If I recall correctly, the time chair thing was sort of like what we were talking about earlier, with the person is deprived of senses and then given a drug to like loosen up their mind's bonds on reality, and then weird shit happened. Sometimes they could see through time and space, and sometimes they could see into the future or the past or whatever. It just, whatever the hell drug trip they went on, it was an adventure or something.
there have never been any official documents that have confirmed any of this. It's easy to pass this off as an urban legend, but the thing is, some of the same people involved in these stories also had ties to MKUltra, which was very real and proven. So that's kind of given the Montauk...
I mean, MKUltra was very real in the respect that there was a project, not that it was successful at unlocking magical superpowers. Because if they had, I assure you, the government would still be doing it. Because that's what the government does, is try... Never mind. Magic superpowers. Yes, absolutely. I see there's a couple people. Majestic Beck and Karen Butcher both say, well, Beck says, I like the Y-Files. Karen says it was on the Y-Files. So I am probably remembering correctly. Maybe, I don't know. I tried to produce a show in the style of the Y-Files. I liked it so much. I made one episode of a series about weird legendary things. that I thought would do really well. Apparently, I was still under the misapprehension that the amount of production that you put into a video, the better it'll do. Turns out that's not what happens. There's almost no relationship whatsoever between production effort and how well a video does. But I digress. It was about the Shroud of Turin, and I don't. It's so disappointing because I put so fucking much work into not only covering the information as best I could in a single encapsulated topic and going into the science and whatnot, but the format of the presentation, I tried to make it sort of like the Y-Files, where it was like a plausible mystery and laying out piece by piece that seemed to support the case, and then a built-in ad break, like with actual bumpers and everything, and then pull an AJ and like revealed the truth in a way that doesn't make what came before sound like it was lies, but like here's the rest of the story kind of thing. And it got like, I don't know, 100 views maybe. It's just, oh, it was so fucking discouraging. The video does still exist. I don't think it's public anymore because, first of all, I've gone through a few purges of my videos for various reasons. At least one was because I've heard from people whose channels are much, much bigger and more effective than mine, that if a video underperforms, you need to remove it from your channel because it hurts the rest of the channel in the algorithm. The algorithm sees all these videos that got no views and so says, oh, people don't like to watch this, and doesn't send people to your new videos, right? So you have to trim the dead weight on the videos. But I believe that one is unlisted, so that when it comes up, I could, still show people who are actually interested. But I digress. Filbert, you're probably right. I do need a hecklefish. That's clearly the secret. And hecklefish is fucking cool.
Project a little more validity to some. As always, though, what do you think? This next one goes back to 1943, in the middle of World War II. The story is that U.S. Navy tried to make a ship invisible to radar at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The ship...
the Eldridge! So I've always liked the story of the Philadelphia experiment, partly because I was aware of the movie as a child, but I never got a chance to see it. I can't remember if my grandmother didn't allow me to or what the deal was. I was a huge fan of a show called Unsolved Mysteries because it was a thing my grandmother watched. So I'd heard about it, but I only had bits and pieces of the story. And also I was into, World War II weird stuff, mostly aerospace technology, like the development of the Messerschmitt 262, the first jet fighter, or the Go-229, that original flying wing bomber that they never actually finished development for, stuff like that. Or weird stuff like the P-38 Lightning, which was just a standard U.S. Air Force, Army Air Force aircraft, but it had two fuselages for some reason. It looked weird, so I thought it was cool. But the Eldridge was very weird. And I never really got that much solid information on what the hell happened, other than they were conducting an experiment, and then in the middle of the experiment, they lost contact with the vessel. And then stories vary. The Eldridge appeared in a different city hundreds of miles away, or it jumped through time, or sailors were found like melted into the bulkheads. Every kind of story you can think of was out there somewhere. And then back to podcast land, I came across a podcast, one of the best podcasts ever produced, called Ars Paradoxica. And it's such a good fucking story. And it uses the Eldridge and Project Rainbow, which, as it turns out, was the thing they were trying to do. They wanted to test a device that was supposed to bend electromagnetic radiation around a ship to render it effectively invisible. Some versions say to radar, some versions say to all light period, but it's not important. The point is Project Rainbow created a temporal anchor point. And so a physicist from the future who is experimenting with untethering mass from the Higgs field accidentally unstuck herself in time and was drawn all the way back to the deck of the USS Eldridge. And the story goes from there, and it's so fucking fun. Again, if you're into podcasts, just throw that. See, I promote random shit all the time. It's not just, people on YouTube that I think y'all might like to see. I'll talk about podcasts. I'll talk about whatever, books and all sorts of things.
Was the USS Eldridge.
Anything but stay on topic, apparently.
But according to people who claim to have witnessed it, something much stranger happened. That's putting it lightly. Something cosmically horrific happened. They say the ship vanished completely and then reappeared hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia. And when it came back, the crew was not well. First off, there were a ton of them missing, and many who had.
We're just gonna drop the boat. This is some Noah's Ark shit right here. We're just dropping the boat onto a building.
Had shown back up with the ship were quite literally with the ship. They'd fused into the metal. The lucky ones just went insane, claiming to have seen something on the other side. The Navy has always denied that anything like this happened, but the story came to light through a man named Carl Allen, who sent letters detailing the events later. Of course, he was written off for being unstable, but the story...
Oh, goodness. Oh, some of these photos, they're just... Oh, wow. Aunt Jer says, Ars Paradoxica? Close. It's Ars, A-R-S, like Ars Technica. And I believe the Rs is all caps and the Paradoxica is all lowercase. It's nerd jokes, such as life. But even the logo's fucking cool. It's like there's a circle, which is like the universe. And then there's like bigger and dimmer blue circles going one way and red circles going the other way because it's blue shift and red shift because you're moving through time. It's so fucking nerdy. I love it. And also the main character, Dr. Sally Grissom, is not just a woman scientist in the 1940s, but she's also ace. And it like just kills off all the romantic bullshit that it just, it's a whole thing. And they do a special episode about the importance of vulgarity. It just touches my heart.
Story took off anyway. There's even an X-Files episode about this one. To be fair, X-Files goes in some incredibly weird directions, so this is in no way adding validity to the story, but it does go to show just how much the Philadelphia experiment, as it came to be called, was talked about. What's interesting...
I mean, honestly, considering some of the sources we've reviewed so far, I think having an X-Files show about it probably would increase its credibility slightly. It's, oh my goodness. But also, what does that have to do with alternate universes? If you're jumping through space and time, it doesn't necessarily imply... That's like saying you can build an airplane, you can fly, therefore you can go to Mars. Like, entirely different orders of magnitude, the level of technology and the consequences of it here.
The thing about this story is how specific it is, too. It doesn't really feel like your typical urban legend. It sounds more like someone trying to explain something that they don't fully understand. Who knows, maybe something strange...
Oh, humans never do that. Humans never make up stories to explain things they don't understand. Oh, where would you get such a notion?
Really did happen that day. Maybe there really was an experiment that caused a breach in the fabric of reality. In the small town of Taos, New Mexico, people have been hearing a strange sound since the early 90s, a low-frequency hum, like a distant engine running, a hum that never seems to go away. Not everyone hears it, but for those who do, it's constant. Where does it come from? Well, that's the mystery. But the people who hear it...
This reminds me of the... Well, there's a phenomenon that it's reported a lot with neurodivergent people, but I don't know that we have solid data one way or the other. If you've ever walked near power lines, you can detect that the sound of nature is replaced by an electrical hum. It's the frequency of the electricity moving through the power lines. It happens to fall into the human range of detectability. It's audible. That same hum exists in your house. It's just much quieter because there's much less current. And certain neurodivergent people not only can hear it, but can't not hear it. It's not unthinkable that in a town there might be like a power substation nearby or something, and people could hear the sound of the power grid. And, he just said, it's not everyone, it's just certain people. That kind of tracks with the neurodivergent thing. Maybe there was just enough of them and the circumstances were just right. Now, this is only one hypothesis, and I have no way to test it, but it's plausible that they might just be hearing the power grid before we noticed that was a phenomenon that happened sometimes.
Horrid headaches, insomnia, and just overall dread, like something's just off. The government has sent scientists to investigate. They've recorded the environment, tested the soil, the air, everything, but they couldn't find what was actually causing it. The hum isn't picked up by microphones or equipment, so it's basically impossible to study. It's almost like it's happening
Okay, so it's a magic hum. Sure, why not?
inside the victims' bodies, which is about as terrifying as it sounds, no pun intended. Now, there are theories as to
Ooh, maybe it's sort of like the phenomenon with, well, first of all, there's bone conduction, right? Like you can pick up vibration. We're making headphones that do this now, that conduct directly into your bones so that it's not affecting your actual eardrum and hearing system. It's just going straight into the bones. But also, I'm thinking of like our friend AJ from Ways to Human, who has a cochlear implant system that like bypasses most of the ear so that she can actually like make a Bluetooth connection with her computer. And rather than hear something, like the signal gets transmitted into her brain. And so she doesn't have to hear. Now, obviously, that requires an implant. But what if there's something similar in this story? Sinister Porpoise asks, have they found a parallel universe where P equals NP? I mean, probably. Maybe.
what this could be. Electromagnetic interference, underground drilling, some sort of secret military technology. But is it possible people are hearing something even stranger than that? Like an echo from another dimension? Maybe the hum.
Ooh, they're hearing Gregorian chants from the dwarven universe next door. Or maybe it's like in Norse mythology, right? Like there's the realms, and then you've got like, oh, where the hell do the dwarves live? Niflheim? Maybe? I can't quite remember. I'm bad at I'm bad at everything, but I'm really bad at remembering very specific aspects of mythologies that aren't trying to take over our culture right now. But yeah, maybe you're hearing like the chants from the dwarves in the next reality over kind of thing.
Isn't a sound at all, but more of a frequency from another place, something leaking in. Just a thought. This story popped up on Reddit a couple years back from a user who deleted their account shortly after posting. Here's what they wrote. I've lived in the same apartment for about 4 years. It's nothing fancy, 1 bedroom, open kitchen, small balcony, but about 2 weeks ago I came home from work and noticed something weird. The door handle felt different, like it was just slightly lower than I remembered. Same style, same lock, just off. When I walked in, everything looked normal at first, but my keys were in a different bowl than I usually leave them. I thought maybe I was just tired, but then I noticed my bookshelf. There were 2 books on it that I don't own. One of them was a collection of short stories by Ray Bradbury that I'd been meaning to buy, but hadn't yet. The other was a guidebook for a city I've never been to. I asked my girl.
I mean, in fairness, I have guidebooks for cities I've never been to. Everyone who knows me knows I love to travel, and there are a lot of places I have not been to yet. I still haven't made it to freaking Europe at all, which is a damn shame, TBH. But sometimes people would occasionally get me like a travel guidebook for like Venice or something. Even though there's zero chance that I could go because I've always been poor, but I could like learn a little bit about these interesting places in other distant lands and such. So that I get why he's doing it, because it's so easy to say you just walked into someone else's apartment. Maybe you were a floor down or something. So he's got to create that verisimilitude that he's like, no. All these specific details were so close, it had to be my apartment, except it definitely wasn't my apartment. But stranger things have happened.
Girlfriend, if she bought them over, she said no. I called my landlord just to be sure no one had entered while I was at work. He checked. Nothing. Since then, a few other tiny things have changed. A painting in the hallway is 1 inch higher. My phone background changed to a photo I don't remember taking. I know how this.
How do you know a painting in the hallway is 1 inch higher? Like, did you measure it before it changed? And so you were able to measure it after? And like, is this person wandering around their apartment measuring everything just in case it might change later? This is a very strange narrative. I don't know. I mean, sometimes things do change. For example, the bathroom out in the hallway over here. you know, it's got a medicine cabinet with the mirror set on the front and so on and so forth, as many mirrors do. And for the first year or so we were here, I could look myself in the eye in the mirror, but the top of my head was cut off. But then after being here a little bit longer, I could still look myself in the eye, but now I could see the top of my head and a little space above it. Did the mirror change? Well, no, I've actually gotten a little shorter, partly because I'm old, and partly because HRT changes a few things about your skeleton, which is a neat thing that you don't hear about until you start asking, hey, why is this thing strangely different? And it's only a couple inches, but it's noticeable, you know? It's there's a bunch of fun things that change about your body as you age, especially when you go through major life changes. Shoe size, hand size, shoulder width, all sorts of things change over time, especially when you go through certain major life changes.
Pounds, but it feels like I came back to a version of my life that's almost the same, just not quite. Guys, I can't speak to the validity of stories like this on Reddit. If you are experiencing things like this, go to a doctor. Just, some advice. In December of 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers stationed on the remote Flannan Isles off the coast of Scotland vanished without a trace. When a relief crew arrived after a storm had delayed them, they found the lighthouse empty. Everything inside was undisturbed. Clocks had stopped, meals were left on the table, and one of the men's coats was still hanging on a hook. The only clue was a...
That's actually not that uncommon. If, for example, I don't know how common it is these days because it's not that common to have manned lighthouses anymore. But in the old days, like if word came in, whether it was by radio or semaphore or whatever, that a very bad storm was about to hit, you left the lighthouse. You like got in your little rowboat and you got the hell out of there. You didn't necessarily have time to pack your stuff. You certainly didn't have time to finish your meal. Like, again, this is just a story that someone told, but it's not outside of the realm of possibility. A number of sailors over the years, sometimes in shipwreck situations or whatever, have reported going to a lighthouse to try to find help and finding no one in the lighthouse because of the same storm that sank the ship that they were a survivor of, sort of thing.
Logbook entry mentioning a violent storm, but the weather had actually been pretty calm the day they supposedly wrote it. No bodies were ever found. The official explanation is that a massive wave may have swept them out to sea, but that doesn't add up. Why were there no signs of struggle? No debris, nothing washed up. It was like they just stepped off the island.
Yeah, a rogue wave wouldn't do that. It wouldn't, like, you might get all the clocks stopped at the same time. My suspicion is that, they probably wound down when people left. Like Elle points out, clocks used to need winding. There's still clocks that need winding. But like the food on the table, if there was a strong enough wave to wash them out of the building, it probably would have disturbed the food on the table. I don't know.
Vanished. For decades, amateur astronomers and conspiracy theorists have pointed to something strange orbiting Earth, an unidentified object known as the Black Knight satellite. The story really kicked off in the 50s when both the US and Soviet Union detected something unusual in orbit. It wasn't one of theirs. It didn't match the movement.
In the 1950s, you say? This one rings a little bit of a bell as well. I'm pretty sure there was a Wi-Fi episode about that. The Black Knight satellite. I seem to recall that this was a thing, like it was a Russian satellite, but I'm probably misremembering. Okay, Google overview says the Black Knight satellite is a conspiracy theory claiming an extraterrestrial object orbits Earth, a story NASA is accused of covering up, even though it predates NASA. However, there's no evidence to support this theory, and it appears to be a combination of several unrelated incidents. The satellite itself is often associated with misidentified images of space junk or natural phenomena. That's interesting to me because one of the parts of the Ars Paradoxica story involves an artificial satellite in the early 1940s, before humans could do that. and it creates a whole timeline thing. It's fun. Changes the whole course of World War II, that's for sure. Let's see. One page says it's a 1,300-year-old conspiracy. Another says it's 120 years old. Here's a space.com article that refers to it as 120 years old. It's an alien spacecraft orbiting Earth. Of course it is. Of course. An artist's impression of the purported Black Knight satellite, the focus of a long-lived conspiracy theory. Oh, goodness. It's, yeah. So there's a mysterious artificial object orbiting Earth in near-polar orbit, possibly of alien origin, and has been doing so for more than 13,000 years. That's a remarkably stable orbit. While scientists and space agencies have debunked the claim many times, the Black Knight satellite myth persists in online forums and tabloid articles, fueled by a jumble of unrelated space phenomena, misidentified objects, and speculative science fiction. And that's going to do it for visiting that article, because I'm getting so many freaking pop-ups. To hell with that.
Of any known satellites at the time. And then there's the really weird part. In the 70s, images taken during a NASA mission seemed to show this strange, jagged object in orbit, and it didn't look like space junk or any known satellite. Some believe
that's definitely actual NASA footage. 100%, folks.
It's been up there for 13,000 years, sent by an ancient civilization or aliens as a monitoring device. Nikola Tesla himself claimed to have received a repeated...
Of course, Nikola Tesla's here. Holy shit, we're accidentally doing a Bad Science Sunday episode. And Maya didn't think there'd be one today. Holy shit.
Signal from space in the 1890s, and some now connect that to this. No one knows exactly.
I love Tesla with the tinfoil hat. Shit, I should have got my tinfoil hat ready for this. Oh, it's way over there, though. I can't reach it right now.
Exactly what it is. NASA says the object in the photos is just a thermal blanket that came loose during a mission, but that explanation doesn't sit well with people who've followed the story for decades. If it really is something watching us from above, then who or what put it there, and how long have they been watching? When
That reminds me of another interesting story. It's by Orson Scott Card, who is a very problematic human. But he's famous especially for writing the story Ender's Game, which was later made into a movie with Harrison Ford and so on and so forth. In this particular story, the hero of the story, there's world building, yada, yada, yada. The relevant part is that the character notices that the calendar counts backwards, or more precisely, the year is like 14 or something like that. But the calendar had counted backwards, and he kept trying to find out what happened on the year 0. Why was that the year 0? Why are we now counting up from 0? And it's very peculiar. The history goes back for over 10,000 years, and it's so many mysteries, and so it's a fun story. Not to spoil it, I'm sure everybody's dying to pick up, this Mormon bigoted fellow's book from 20 years ago or whatever. But basically, it was a space travel thing. They figured out how to do superluminal travel to get between stars very, very quickly by folding space. When they did it, they also folded time and didn't know they had done it. So there, via certain math equations, they came out over 10,000 years in the past at the destination planet. So they set up shop, and they were counting down until the world they were on reached the time they'd left from. That was the year 0, was the present. So they couldn't do radio emissions or whatever that might be detected by past Earth and fuck up the timeline. So they could only allow technology to advance to a certain point, a whole bunch of stuff like that. But there were geostationary orbits. Why can't I speak English today? There were satellites in geostationary orbits over the planet for thousands and thousands of years. because their technology was just so good. But you know what else is so good? Super chat from Miranda, who sends $10. Thank you so much, Miranda, and says, "Hey y'all, get your super chats in so we can do overtime." Overtime. Oh, I've been watching StarCraft 2 videos, so I've got kind of the SCV thing in my head. Don't mind me, I am a silly bean. But that's true because Maya cannot do a Bad Science Sunday today for various reasons. We have the rare opportunity to go into overtime, to keep going with the show and take it later than usual, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, that's our super chat goal for today. If we can get 5 super chats of whatever the hell color that is, teal it says, or higher, we're at 3 already. Then we'll go late. It'll be fun. And if not, no worries. I'll be back tomorrow morning. We're back with the morning show at 11 a.m. Hot Topic, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 Eastern time. Tomorrow we're doing government interference in healthcare. It'll be less fun than this show, but it'll be more meaningful. So there's that. And in addition to the ladies from Java and Jugs, who may or may not stop by, depending on their availability and inclination, I will be joined by Miss Carly Chardonnay Webb from the Transpositions, who, as it happens, her day job is as an operator and trainer for Trans Lifeline. And so she's got some opinions about what all this meddling in people's healthcare access means for real people. So it'll be a more serious discussion, but an important one. So I hope you join us, which means you should subscribe if you haven't already. Just throwing that out there.
James Leininger was just 2 years old. He started having violent nightmares about crashing in a plane. He'd wake up screaming about being stuck in a fire or yelling things like airplane crash and the little man can't get out. During the day, he started naming aircraft parts most toddlers wouldn't know existed. Things like drop.
Oh, no. You don't want to go there, buddy. I was that toddler who could name aircraft parts because, again, TISM, hyper focus on air. Like, I couldn't have done a 747. But if you showed me the parts of, say, a Fokker-Wulf 190, I could name most of those when I maybe not a toddler exactly, but 5 or 6-ish, it's just nerd stuff, But what's not nerdy or is nerd, I don't know. This is a terrible segue, but Left-Handed Jedi sends a super chat for $5. Thank you so much, Jedi. And says, "Don't worry. Be happy. Hakuna Matata, bitches. Oh, yeah."
Tanks and Corsairs. He also kept saying he'd flown off a ship called a Natoma and that his name had been James. His parents eventually looked into it and discovered that the USS Natoma Bay was a real World War II aircraft carrier. They found a pilot.
That's the show, Malicious Meddling in Medicine, because always alliteration. You know me. That's how I roll. Yeah. Whenever I can get away with it anyway. Why am I like this? I don't know. Maybe I need to talk to a therapist and figure out why I'm like this. I have spoken to therapists, but it was mostly dealing with all that pesky life trauma business. We didn't really get into my propensity for peculiarities of language. Oh, goodness.
On its roster, named James Huston Jr., who died in combat. The plane was shot down and exploded. James the toddler also named another pilot from that crew who was still alive at the time, and when they met, the child recognized him instantly. On top of that, James could recall specific events and details of battles that matched Navy records. His parents had never really...
Oh, you remember specific battles. That's interesting. Because I remember when I was very small, 7 or 8-ish, I went to an air show in Batavia, New York, where a World War II B-17 called the Fuddy Duddy, great name, right? It was there on display, but they also had one of the actual veterans who flew on that specific plane in World War II there. And so I asked him about certain engagements that he may have been a part of. I asked about the Messerschmitt 262. Did you ever see one? And, he was like, holy shit, how does this kid know so much about World War II? Special interests. That'll happen when you have a kid with a very focused special interest and a particular kind of neurodivergence that makes you hyper focus on certain things. Speaking of hyper focusing on certain things, Spooky Bed Hair sends a super chat for £5. Thank you so much, Spooky, which also means we meet our goal and we're doing overtime. Spooky says, don't threaten me with a good time. Oh my, oh my. And PC's here. Thank you, PC, with all the links earlier. And yes, thank you for the super chats. Beck says, I like the Ascended Ember. I don't know if I qualify as Ascended, but we'll go with it. But yeah, we can keep partying for a while longer, and that's super neat. Let me check the poll while I'm checking things, if I can. I started a poll at the beginning of the show about whether we should move the show to a different time or whatever. Again, I realize there's a selection bias. The people who show up at this time are going to be the ones who answered the poll. But still, it's more data with a pretty significant number of votes, considering we got only 7% want much earlier, 13% want a different day entirely, 23% want a bit earlier. But all of that together only adds up to 43%. 57%, the rare majority, said no, this is the best time. So, I mean, data and democracy come together to say the show needs to stay where it is, at least for right now. We can always discuss in the future. Circumstances change. I mean, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how the legal bullshit about my job is going to go. I don't know where I'm going to work in the future, or there's so much that's up in the air. But for right now, this show will stay right where it is. And to celebrate that, and also overtime, let's do some free gift memberships, because YouTube gives me 10 to hand out every month. A channel of this size gets 10. They go in packs of 5. I still have 5 left for this month. So let's hit it and see what happens with that. Hell yeah. So those went to, as soon as it shows me, the thing saying your gift memberships have been announced in the live chat is blocking my view, so I got to wait for it. Okay, those went to Muttley Von Eric, Aaron Non Sequitur, Nura. My monitor is shit and I can't see that last name. My apologies, Nura. I'll explain in a moment. Trip, and Broadcast Cat. Congratulations, folks. Or maybe it's Cal. Broadcast, anyway. But do enjoy all the fun custom emojis, which are voted on by the members, as well as the other perks, like access to the member stream, which I do at least one a month. There will be one of those this coming week. And early access to every single regular recorded video I release, which I realize isn't as many as it used to be, but when they happen, members get them first. And I hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy enough that you renew your membership in the future. But I mean, I'm poor. I understand when people can't. Such is life. But do enjoy. I hope you have fun. Yay. Okay, so I said I was going to explain. I've mentioned before that my monitor was broken. I had very small sections of the screen I could actually use. There were huge sections that were just completely unusable, like big old bars and blurs and all sorts of things. So I tracked down one of my old photography TVs. Because I used to do professional photography shows, I had a couple of TVs for like upright displays and whatnot to show off my work and run promos and play videos and all sorts of things. One of them got repurposed for when my son is over, so we could watch stuff. When my monitor went bad, because I'm very poor and have no actual job at the moment, because of all sorts of bullshit that we don't have to get into right now, I'm like, I can't afford to replace this monitor. And it was very, very depressing. But what I could do was find the old photography TV and turn that into a monitor. And so that's what I did. And so now I have a working monitor. I can see, and that's wonderful. but it's a much smaller monitor with a much lower resolution and color spectrum, and it's so bad that I cannot tell the difference between an L and a T on the screen. I'm trying to figure out how to change the default display font. Maybe that'll help if I can find it. But whatever, it's really fucking depressing, folks. I literally, after I set it up, I felt good that I managed to get it figured out and get it set up. But then I cried because it's such a huge downgrade in capability. And I'm like, oh, but we work with what we've got, you know? You do what you have to do, and we keep trying to keep moving forward. It's just one more thing on top of everything else, you know? Like, not to get down on y'all in the middle of our making fun of stuff show. It just I've had ear infections for months and I can't get a doctor to treat them. You know, it just the shit adds up. Oh, it's rough, which is why we need shows where we can look at weird, crazy science shit and laugh at it for a little while. So I appreciate you indulging me in this little tangent, I guess, in why certain things are in my way and making life difficult, so we can get back to fun things. Yay.
Talked to him about this stuff at home, and none of it was in any children's books. As he got older, the memories started to fade, but for a while, it seemed like this kid was actually remembering a past life. At 4 years old, Shanti Devi in India started insisting that she had another family in a different town. She told her parents she wasn't really their daughter, that her real name was Lugdi Devi, and she'd lived in Mathura, about 75 miles away. She said she died giving birth to a son and gave the full name of her husband, the town he lived in, what he looked like, and even the layout of their house. At first,
that's a weird amount of detail. If true, I mean, this is better than most of the other stories. It's like, here are the people's names. And you know, we don't get a lot of specific information, like what town they lived in or what the description of the house given versus what was actually found there, that sort of thing. But like, there's actual names. So this is a level of detail we're not getting in a lot of these other stories. That's pretty cool, I think. It also reminds me of some weird shit that happened when I was very small. Now, it's really hard to say because children are extremely creative, and I was on that train, you know. I was convinced there were aliens and they lived in the star I now understand to be Virgo. And maybe that's true, but I had no way to know it. We still have no way to know it for sure, you know, but I remembered things, and I think it was because I didn't yet know how to tell what was a memory versus what was a construction of my mind because I was very small. But I remembered things that I had no business knowing. And my mother would say, "How the hell do you know that?" And I'd tell her I learned it in baby school before I was born. Unfortunately, the memories are so far back, there's like a marker on those memories that wasn't quite accurate, but I was rephrasing a concept into words that I thought my mother would understand rather than try to articulate a more difficult truth. But I can't quite put my finger on what that truth was. You know how very, very, very young childhood memories are mushy. Like, for example, I can remember learning to crawl. I can remember being on all fours on a hardwood floor and there being a pair of legs in the distance. I didn't know they were legs at the time, but the visual impression was of a light, like a window, and then the shadows of what I now know to be two legs. That's encoded into the memory. The legs were attached to a person who was saying something, but since I didn't speak English at the time, I didn't know what they were saying, so the words aren't encoded into the memory. It's almost like the Charlie Brown voices, the you know? So it's very weird what we can remember and what the brain tries to fill in for gaps and what the brain just throws up its hands and says, "Fuck it" about, you know? Oh, I wish we could study that kind of shit, but it's so random, you know? like the bits and pieces of my memory are scattershot. They're the moments of intense awareness before full consciousness set in. And I imagine it's like that for everybody else too. People who have memories that go that far back. I understand that it's a fairly rare phenomenon for people to remember much before the age of 4 or something. I don't know. I don't know that we even have data about it, you know? But even when it does happen, it's like bits and pieces. Like I can remember one time when I was a little younger than 4, when my older sister came home from school and said something to the effect of, "You're getting really big." And I was sitting on a beanbag chair and I was just kind of vibing. But when she said that, it caused me like a stimulus reaction. It caused me to take like a mental inventory of my physical characteristics, sort of like a check-in with my proprioception. And I realized she was correct. I was physically bigger than I had been in previous memories. And that's the first time I can remember being aware of myself as like a subjective entity rather than just a processing system, like in the learning to crawl memory, where I was just trying to figure out how to get my arms and legs to move. There was no sense of self involved in that. It was just an objective, an exercise of will. But in this memory, where my sister refers to my physical form, I was aware of myself as a self. And that, I don't know, it seems significant to me. But maybe I'm overthinking it because these are the only memories I have to draw off of. I don't know. Oh, goodness. Karen Butcher asks, do you have an Amazon wish list people could make payments for it toward? Okay, so a few years ago, I got peer pressured into setting up an Amazon wish list. It's mostly stuff for production. Like the first thing that got put on it was a thing that someone in the audience suggested I make the wish list for, which was a teleprompter, so that I could do like scripted videos and look directly into the camera instead of what I still do to this day, which is look close to the camera, but actually be reading off of something. I have one, but it's not like stuff I need. It's just like stuff like teleprompters or, oh, I know I put a whole bunch of stuff on when I first started my transition that was transition related, like different kinds of makeup or clothes or whatever. Again, very poor, shopping at thrift stores. But I don't know if there's anything on there that's like that I need, if that makes sense. But if you're bound and determined to find the dang thing, it may not be linked in my descriptions anymore because nothing happened with it for over a year. So I probably stopped putting it in my descriptions, but it is still linked on my website, betterthanember.com, where all my links are. That's what the website was originally for. So yeah, it's right down there, betterthanember.com. Wish lists, various ways to support, Patreon, but also single donation options like Ko-Fi, Cash App, Venmo. And of course, as Andrew points out, the GoFundMe for my medical bills, which, helps a lot. That's separate from everything else. That has nothing to do with my rent or my food or any of the projects I'm trying to do or causes I support. That's just the medical stuff, but that helps too considerably. Yeah. All right. Good times. Yeah, monitor. I probably should put a monitor on there, but like I said, I haven't looked at the damn thing in a while. But maybe I will. Let's see. I don't know. I've been going off on my tangents have tangents today. My goodness. We need to focus. We have a video to cover. We're definitely not getting through the whole thing, but we can do more of it.
Everyone thought she was just making things up, but when they actually looked into it, her descriptions lined up. A man named Kedar Nath lived in Mathura, had a wife named Lugdi who died during childbirth, and had a son. When Shanti met him, she instantly recognized him and greeted him like she knew him. She also correctly pointed out places and people in towns she'd supposedly never seen. Word got around and the case became so well known that a commission was set up by order of Gandhi himself. They interviewed witnesses, retraced her claims, and found that almost everything she said had a real world match. Cameron McCulley was a
Did Gandhi have the authority to order a commission set up? I didn't think that was. I mean, I know a relative of his, Indira Gandhi, became like Prime Minister of India, but I don't think Gandhi had. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it's a Mandela effect thing, and he became the Nelson Mandela of India, except probably earlier. I don't know.
regular kid growing up in Glasgow, until around age 5 when he started talking non-stop about a place called the Isle of Barra. He claimed he used to live there in a white house by the sea with a black and white dog, and a family that he really missed. He talked about planes landing on the beach, his old dad named Shane Robertson, and how his old life had ended when he, quote, fell through. His parents had never even mentioned Barra before, but Cameron was convinced. Eventually they took him to the island, and it turned out there really was a white house by the sea, just like he described. But I mean, whatever, right? A white house, it's not like there aren't any other white houses in the world. Well, this one belongs.
Right? But that's eerily triggering some other memories. Like, I remembered a few things that I'd never actually seen in my life, and some of them I never found the actual thing for. Like, I remembered my great-grandmother's house, who died before I was born. Weird, eerie stuff about that I've mentioned before. My mother was pregnant with me when she passed, and so she left a little teddy bear for me. That makes sense. But she also crocheted a rabbit for my little brother while my mom was pregnant with me. Like, how did she know there would be more children? How did she know it would be a brother, etc., etc.? You know? So that's a little weird. I dreamed about her house, but because she had already died and the house had been sold and whatever, I never got to go see it to see if it matched my dream. I know, and a few other things like this. I had another recurring dream when I was very small about a railroad and a very specific looking water tower of like an early 1900s style next to a rail depot. Not anything rare at all, but I've never found the damn station that is exactly like what I saw in my dream. But before I started elementary school, I did have a dream about my elementary school. And I mean, I'm sure it was a dream because the city that the school was in the dream, there were like these Lego skyscrapers that obviously they don't exist in reality, but there isn't even an analog. It's not like there's existing skyscrapers that in the dream were made of Legos. It was just something that isn't there, right? But the layout of the school in my dream matched the school in real life. Like, I went to kindergarten on the first day and they're giving us the tour, like, here's the nurse's office, here's the principal's office, and I'm like, and there's the cafeteria, and there's the library, and there's our classrooms, and over there's the sixth grader classrooms. And the teacher's like, how the fuck do you know that? It was kind of fun. So, weird dreams, hooray. Sometimes I can't explain it. Like, some things, intuition, some things your brain just putting pieces together. Like, maybe I read the sign that says library and then my brain like retroactively inserted it into the memory of the dream. But sometimes I just can't explain things, and that's okay. It's fine to say I don't know. The problem is when we start presupposing magic of some kind must be involved because we don't know.
Belonged to a Robertson family. Again, just like young Cameron had described. Cameron was walking around like he'd been there before, naming things and pointing out details that lined up with what he'd talked about before. There were no obvious signs of how he could have known any of this. And his memories seemed emotional, not just factual. It didn't seem like he was just repeating stuff. It was as if he was genuinely grieving a life he'd left behind. In 1987, a little girl named Purnima Akaniya was born in Bakumana, Sri Lanka. She was like most kids, except for the fact that she kept talking about being crushed by a heap of iron. She'd also always tell her,
I hate when that happens. So I did a past life regression once, just to see, you know, like you go get your palm read or your tarot cards read or whatever, just to see how it comes out, what it's like. And so I did this past life regression, and you know, I bet $1 with a friend that I would end up having been Cleopatra or something, you know, because it seems like everybody was Cleopatra in a past life. No, I was a French aristocrat who had a falling out with a love interest and then storming out of the mansion or whatever on a dark and stormy night. I in my distress stepped in front of a horse-drawn carriage running at full gallop for some fuck all reason, and I didn't see them and they couldn't stop, and so I got run over by a horse-drawn carriage in France. I'm like, okay, points for creativity, I guess. And I because I was like looking into new age stuff at the time, I was like, could this be real? If I give this a fair shake, if I try to explore this possibility, could it be a real thing? And so using that faulty reasoning, I tried to like emotionally invest in this not memory that I'd been told by someone else and see if I could find any more to it. And while it didn't do anything for my recollection of an event that I never personally experienced, it did create an emotional connection to this hypothetical alternate life that had been taken from me by cruel fate. I actually got sad for my past life, even though I had no memory of it. It's wild what the brain will do.
Her mother, things like people who drive over others are bad, which is of course true, but it was odd that she seemed particularly focused on that specific thing, driving over someone. And when her mom got upset about a car accident that had happened one day, Purnima calmly told her not to worry because she had also died in a crash. She said a big vehicle hit her and
remember, these are people from India where they believe in reincarnation. This is not like a groundbreaking thing like, oh, heaven is real. Like, no, that's part of the culture is reincarnation happens. And that makes sense culturally. Like, it's a better answer than you have to do a certain thing to get into the good afterlife or you'll burn for all eternity in endless suffering. Like, it's no, death is a part of life. You'll just be reborn in another life. That's the culture. I think it's a slightly better, it's still not founded in like scientific demonstrable empiricism, but it's better from a perspective of cultural good than infinite punishment kind of thing, you know?
she never made it to the hospital. Things got weirder when she started saying she used to make incense, and that her name had used to be Jinadasa. She also described 2 types of incense, how she made them, and how she used to walk around with her hands behind her back, supervising workers. She also claimed she lived across the river from a temple, which was over 140 miles away from her actual home. When her family finally took her,
isn't it interesting, though, that people always seem to reincarnate? I mean, when they have memories of their past life, not when they're told by a past life reader, that it's always the same general region, usually the same country, definitely the same language, you know? I don't know, maybe souls have a preference.
there, she started pointing out familiar places and recognized people by name. And man she used to be, who'd died in a car accident, well, he was real. His name was Janadasa Pereira, and he died in 1985, 2 years before Purnima was born, when a bus ran him over while he was selling incense on his bike. And to talk
Isn't it weird that past lives always happened in the past? Like in the world of the dead, time doesn't matter, right? So why not future lives? Why aren't we getting people from 100 years from now who have the cure for cancer being born today? Maybe it is somehow linked to the linearity of our timeline, but then why the gaps? Why is one person dying 2 years before they're reborn? It's very strange. It's fine. It's probably fine.
top it off, she had a birthmark exactly where Pereira's chest had been crushed. Since childhood, Jenny Cockle would have recurring dreams of being a woman named Mary Sutton, who lived in Ireland, had several children, and died young in the 1930s. As she got older, Jenny became obsessed with finding out if Mary was real. She started piecing together what she remembered, names, locations, and the layout of Mary's old home. Eventually, she tracked down a town in Ireland that matched. She discovered that a woman named Mary Sutton had lived there and had died, leaving behind children. Jenny eventually
This sounds interesting. However, remember the criteria here. We found a town in Ireland with a woman named Mary in Ireland. And this woman named Mary in Ireland had children. Like, we're not exactly pulling a needle in a haystack thing here.
Actually reached out to them, now elderly, and met with them in person. To their surprise, she knew all these intimate details about their lives, their personalities as kids, and even specific incidents from their childhood that had never been published or shared. One of the sons, in particular, became convinced that Jenny really was his mother reincarnated. He said she had the same mannerisms and emotional connection to them that Mary had. Imad Elawar was just...
Now that would be interesting if we could see that kind of interaction, like a person talking to a much younger person as if they're the reincarnation of their mother. That would be fascinating to study, whether you believe it's true or not, just from a purely psychological, behavior situation. It'd be fascinating. My goodness. I see Mark has snuck in to point out that Mary is a pretty common name in Ireland. Yeah, it'd be like finding a Jane in England, Oh, wow. That's super rare. Probably. Maybe. Could be.
Under 2 years old when he started telling his parents about a life he had claimed to have lived in another village about 25 miles from where he was growing up, in Lebanon. He gave names, described a yellow car he used to own, and spoke about specific relatives, neighbors, and his former job. His family wasn't all that worried at first, but when Imad suddenly ran to a stranger on the street one day and hugged the man as if he recognized him, and it turned out this person was actually from the town Imad had claimed he'd lived in his past life, well, this intrigued his parents. Eventually, they contacted Dr.
Like that Klingon, the meme from Deep Space Nine, where the Klingon hugs Dax and is like, Curzon, my old friend. And Dax is like, actually, it's Jadzia now. And so the Klingon says, oh, Jadzia, my old friend. It's like, oh, it's my buddy, just in a different body. No problems. This is fine. If only things were actually like that. Can you imagine if we walked up to strangers and we did the namaste thing and saw something in them that's the same as in us and treated them like an old friend? How fucking cool would the world... It'd be weird, but how cool would the world be if we acted that way?
Stevenson, a psychiatrist who'd been studying cases of past life memories. Stevenson documented that Imad made 47 specific statements about his supposed past life. When Stevenson and the Elawar family visited the town, it turned out that 44 of those 47 statements matched up with the real-life story of a man named Ibrahim Bounzi, who died 5 years before Imad was born. Another important detail is that
on a world with, at the time between 4 and 6 billion people, what are the odds that you can find one person with certain details, not even all the details, but some of the details of a description of one life that match? It just, I don't know. It's like that old that dating show trope, right? Like, list off your top 5 characteristics that you're looking for in a potential spouse, and we will find 100,000 people who meet those criteria. Like, the more specific you get, you'll eventually reach the point of being 1 in a million. And that's fantastic. Finding a 1 in a million match is pretty remarkable. And you're probably going to be very happy if you are right about the things that matter most to you in a relationship. But even then, 1 in a million means there's, 1,000 people who match those criteria on Earth? Or more? Yeah, 1 in a million would be 1,000 per billion. So there'd be 6,000 people, depending on where in time we're talking. It's interesting.
But the child Imad would often talk about how thankful he was for being able to walk. Well, Ibrahim died around the age of 25 after spending a year in a sanatorium. He had tuberculosis and was confined to a bed during
the stock footage. We've got the creepy hospital, but just before that was the abandoned house with the tree growing in the roof. Interesting, completely unrelated note, but there's a lot of houses around where I live where there's trees growing in the roofs, more specifically in the gutters, because people around here don't clean our gutters very well. And the leaves build up, and eventually there's enough biomass that pine seeds can germinate and shit. It's wild.
the final part of his life. Barbro Karlin was a Swedish writer and poet. When she was just 2 years old, though, she started telling her parents that she was Anne Frank. Her family wasn't religious, and she hadn't been taught anything about the Holocaust yet, but Barbro described details of Anne Frank's life that she shouldn't have known. What the secret annex looked like.
So, what's more likely here? That she was exposed to bits of the story of Anne Frank, possibly even her diary at school, and didn't remember or didn't say so, or that she was actually remembering being Anne Frank, or that she had bits of fragments of thoughts that resembled memory and wasn't able to tell the difference, like we were talking about earlier. And other people said, that sounds like the story of Anne Frank. Like, I wish we had better data so we could tell what order these things happened in. Because when you're dealing with a child, often they're suggestible, and you start saying, hey, I saw this and this and this, and somebody else goes, oh, that sounds like Anne Frank. It's putting that idea on the person, and then it becomes part of the thing.
How the rooms were arranged and the names of the people who'd lived there. When her parents finally took her to Amsterdam at age 10, she led them straight to the building without a map or a guide. Once inside, she pointed out changes that had been made to the house since she had lived there. She also seemed terrified of men in uniforms, even if they were just policemen.
In fairness, there's some very good reasons to be terrified of men in uniforms that have nothing to do with reading Anne Frank's. I don't think Anne Frank's diary even, it's been a long time since I read it. I know she mentions the people that are looking for her family, but I don't know that she ever describes them in the diary anyway.
On the street, Barbro went on to become a well-known writer and stood by her memories well into adulthood. She said she remembered parts of her death, the fear of being taken, and a sense of injustice that followed her for years. Seme Tetsumus was born with a misshapen right ear, which his parents chalked up to a birth defect, but when he started talking, he claimed it was from being shot in the head in a past life. He'd said he'd been a man named Salim Fasli, a farmer from another village who'd been killed while working in his fields. He recognized
all this past life stuff is fascinating for various reasons. There's the psychology of it. There's the supernatural aspect that can't be fully disproven. Just like the best I can do on the fly is to present alternative hypotheses that are more plausible. But whatever. But what does any of this have to do with parallel universes? This is I don't know. I'm probably not the only one susceptible to tangents. It just, come on now.
People Salim had known, including his widow, and called her by name. He also gave names of Salim's kids and talked about private conversations and daily routines that no stranger would realistically know. Dr. Ian Stevenson, the same researcher who studied Ahmad Elawar, investigated Sami's case and found it pretty compelling. Salim had in fact been shot dead, and Sami's ear deformity was right where the bullet had entered. The way Sami talked about Salim's life was natural, like he was recalling memories instead of making things up. One of the eeriest parts was how Sami's personality was different from other kids in his village. He was more serious and cautious, traits Salim's family said matched the man that they had remembered.
Imagine being born with a birth defect and then behaving in a more recalcitrant fashion compared to your other friends who don't have a birth defect. It's almost like kids can be mean, and that shapes the experience of the child they're being mean to. Now, in fairness, I'm putting a perspective on the thing that the information doesn't necessarily call for. But again, it's kind of plausible. Like, kids tend to be mean about literally everything,
Chennai Chumalewang was born in Thailand in 1967. When he was just 3 years old, he started saying he used to be a school teacher named Bua Kai. He claimed he'd been killed while riding his bicycle to work. His story got weirder when his family noticed he had two unusual birthmarks, one on the back of his head and another above his left eye. Well, Bua Kai was a real person who had died. And according to his autopsy report, the entry and exit wounds of the bullet that killed him matched up perfectly with Chennai's birthmarks. Chennai kept insisting he wanted...
I have heard this one before. I have a spot on my leg that for a long time I thought it might have been like precancerous or something, because it's a little weird. It's not a birthmark, it's not a mole, it's just weird, right? And so I've had doctors look at it at points when I was much, much younger, like on my parents' insurance and shit. And they're like, oh, it's nothing. Just keep an eye on it. And if it does weird shit, then we'll look at it later, kind of deal. But like I did have people occasionally suggest something along the lines of maybe that's where you received a wound that killed you in a past life, because that's an idea that people have, that like certain weird marks on your body, some people think that means you're a witch in league with the devil. Some people think that was the thing that killed you in a past life. I'm not sure how a mark on my leg, maybe it hit my femoral artery or something, I don't know, but that's a thing that I've encountered before. So maybe
to go home and would say the name of the village where he said he lived. Eventually, his grandma took him there, and without hesitation, he walked up to Bukkai's old house. He correctly identified the man's parents and described items that had been in the home years earlier. He also remembered details like the name of Kai's bicycle and how he used to teach math. This case takes a turn from creepy
Now that would be interesting if a person was like a math teacher in a previous life and remembered that. So they're like growing up, you're 5 years old, you go into kindergarten or whatever, and the teacher's like, so class, 1 + 1 = 2, and you're over here doing freaking differential equations, like that would be amazing. It would definitely make news of some kind, like young math prodigy, yada yada. But then it would come out that you remembered the math from being a math teacher in a previous life. I think everyone would know about that, right? Maybe, I don't know. Bree says, love you, Ember. I love you too, Bree. I hope you're having a good night. I hope you're enjoying the show. As weird as it's getting and as many odd tangents and personal anecdotes I'm going off on, I hope you're having a nice night. I hope you all are. That's why I do these, so we can all have a nice time, hopefully. Oh, I'm getting emotional. I mean, I'm always, shut up, Ember, do the show.
Downright chilling. So a 3-year-old boy in Golan Heights, a region between Syria and Israel, started telling his family he'd been killed in a past life. He said he died when he was attacked with an axe and was buried in a nearby field. Elders in the community followed him to the spot where they dug up a human skeleton with a wound in the skull, right where the boy said the axe had struck. Not only that, but the boy claimed to remember the name of his...
When you find your own previous murdered body buried in the woods, that's weird, right? Like, I mean, this is a story, we can't verify any bits of it, but that's some good storytelling right there.
His killer. When they confronted the man, he allegedly confessed. The whole thing was documented by Dr. Eli Lash, a respected physician known for his public health work. He said the boy's memories were disturbingly detailed, right down to the type of axe used. The large...
Why is it always weirdo doctors that document these things? It's never journalists. It's never researchers into the paranormal. It's always bored doctors. It's never even the person themselves. Like, here's my story of how I found my own murdered body from past life. It's someone else writing the story. It frustrates me. That's probably my own personal hang-up. I don't know.
Hadron Collider, or the LHC, is one of the most impressive scientific machines ever built, designed by the European Organization for Nuclear Research to smash particles together at near light speeds, because why not? But for all its scientific greatness...
Because why not? I mean, that is a good reason to do... For science, right? But, oh my... It's not why not. It's because we're learning so much about subatomic particles. We're exploring our theories, our hypotheses of quantum physics. We know some of it definitely works, but other bits of it we don't know for sure. And so we need to test our theories to see which ones hold up and which ones don't, so we better understand reality on that level. If we're going to be tinkering with atomic nucleuses and shit, we need to know how this stuff works, which means we need to build particle colliders so we can test the damn theories. It's not just a why not. There's What did we build microscopes? Because why not? Or because we had a legitimate reason to want to look at the cellular structure of microorganisms? Fuck.
There are a lot of conspiracies surrounding it, that the LHC can create black holes or open portals to other dimensions. People have even talked about the possibility of the thing accidentally ripping a hole in our reality and letting something from another universe slip through. One of the more popular conspiracy
That is a fun one. I have heard a number of people say something along the lines of, you know, we broke our universe. We punched a hole, we created mini black holes, all this sorts of stuff. But this idea of letting something else through, I don't hear that one very often.
theories is that CERN, or CERN, is trying to open a gateway to another dimension. The idea is that by colliding particles at such high speeds, they could create a rift in spacetime, allowing access to parallel universes.
Well, okay, so wormholes, Einstein-Rosen bridges, if you will. There's certain versions of the math that seem to imply such a thing might be possible under very specific circumstances. But a particle collider, for all the energy it throws out, falls a long fucking way short of being able to pull that off. It just... yeah, that's... Tell me you don't understand anything about physics without saying you don't understand anything about physics.
Also a theory that CERN is trying to contact alien beings or gods from these other dimensions, and that the machine's true purpose is far more sinister than just smashing atoms, which is already pretty nuts as it is. Now, none of these theories have any real scientific backing. Scientists at CERN have repeatedly told the public that the LHC is safe and that it can't create black holes or tear open the fabric of the universe, but to be fair to the conspiracy theorists out there, I mean, they would say that, wouldn't they? Who's gonna come out and tell the
Of course, the conspiracy theorists, they would say that, wouldn't they? Yeah.
public like, yep, oh yeah, we've been just trying to open a gateway to another dimension and make contact with entities in other realms. Don't mind us. Keep giving us your tax dollars, please. The advanced air...
I mean, that's the crazy thing, though, right? Because, like, if there were a scientific hypothesis, a mathematical series of equations that says, hey, if we do this and this and this, we can open a rift to another dimension and make contact with higher dimensional beings or something. If we could, like, demonstrate a plan for how to do that and show that it was plausible, we would fund that. People would throw money at that project to the same extent and for the same reason as they have funded CERN. You don't have to lie about that. If there's real science behind it, it will get funded. Every government in the world would want to have a piece of the gateway to the other universe full of higher dimensional beings. Holy shit.
Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, operated from 2007 to 2012. It was a top-secret government unit tasked with investigating UFOs. Now, a few years back, a series of AATIP documents were declassified. Apparently, they had also been looking into invisibility, cloaking, anti-gravity technology, wormholes, and even extra dimensions. Nick Pope...
I mean, in fairness, I looked into all of those things when I was a teenager, too. Some of them are a bit more plausible than others. But they're all fun, interesting subjects, especially when you're first learning science at a level higher than apples are red, you know? It's fun. Is invisibility possible? Well, as you start to understand optics, technically yes, but practically not really, you know? all these things. I mean, theoretically, we could make wormholes. From a practical perspective, we'd basically need 5 pet black holes lined up in a row to generate the gravitational distortion necessary. It's wild.
Who used to head up the British government's UFO research, got his hands on some of the documents related to AATIP. The exact nature of their work is still a bit of a mystery, but what's clear is that they were looking into some really strange technology. Serious research was being done on things that could potentially bend the laws of physics as we know them. What's even more interesting is that...
That's a fun phrase, because all the weird science shit that we normally talk about, it's the fringe of what's possible under the laws of physics, but not a bit of it, even in hypothetical form, bends or breaks it. Because once you start talking about bending or breaking the laws of physics, you're talking about supernatural stuff. You're crossing over from what is scientifically possible or even plausible into actual fucking magic. Unless you have a very good reason for why the laws bend or are different in a certain circumstance. Like the way time gets weird around intense gravity fields, for example. That's not actually bending the laws of physics, it's bending our understanding of the laws of physics. But that may be, a little too fine a line of things, splitting hairs, if you will.
Connection to UFOs. The Pentagon confirmed that AATIP investigated footage of Navy pilots encountering a strange glowing object near San Diego. The object rotated and had a mysterious aura around it, and no one's been able to explain what it was. Now, when
clearly that was the faith healing surfer guru guy. It's a strange object with an aura around him. What else could it be?
AATIP claimed that they looked at UFOs as less of a possible alien threat and more of a foreign threat, that other countries could be developing technology far ahead of the US. UFO does just mean unidentified flying object after all, but Nick Pope thinks that maybe AATIP may have known more than what they were letting on, and that the talk about foreign advanced...
Yes, the government has secret knowledge they're not telling anyone. Well, no shit. It's sort of what governments are known for. But if they did have secret knowledge about this one specific thing, this particular unidentified whatever the hell, and they weren't telling anyone, then where do the stories come from?
Aerospace threats was just a cover. If they really were delving into things like wormholes and extra dimensions, could they have been trying to figure out how UFOs move the way they do by bending space and time? Were they exploring technologies that could open doorways to parallel realities? The Avro...
Now, that's an interesting possibility that's been discussed in a few different sci-fi forums, but I find it a compelling enough topic to return to from time to time. We know that traveling between the stars takes a lot of energy, a high level of technology, and a long fucking time, unless you get enough technology that you can travel faster than light. But that's a very high bar. It still takes a fuck ton of energy and so on and so forth. So would it be easier to A, travel faster than light, B, figure out how to create and use wormholes to fold dimensional space in order to cross interstellar distances without having to deal with light speed, or C, hop over to a different dimension entirely and make new friends in other worlds that way, instead of mucking around with traveling through space at all? I'm not sure. I don't know if two of those are even possible from a practical perspective. And yes, I know relativity says that traveling faster than light isn't possible either. That doesn't necessarily mean it isn't, though, but that's a whole other side conversation. But it does put me in mind of another story, another book series by Terry Pratchett and Stephen A. Baxter called The Long Earth, which is basically humans figure out how to step into the next dimension over, and they can go one way or another way. And so it's kind of like conceptualized as like another direction of travel. Like you can go forward, back, up, down, left, right. You can also move across dimensions, but it's only one way or the other. And so if you go westward one dimension and then go eastward, you're back in the first where you started, right? And it's always the same dimensions in the same order. So you, in order to get to, Madison West 5, you have to go west across 5 dimensions in Madison, Wisconsin. That sort of thing. It creates some fascinating implications, because not only do the worlds get weirder and weirder the further out you get as they diverge further and further from our Earth, the datum Earth in the stories. And, Pratchett is a hell of a storyteller, as I'm sure you're aware. But it also, it's a long trip. Like, you have to physically step across the distances. It's neat. There's, I think it's the 3rd book in the series. It's called The Long Mars, because it's the Long Earth series. It's long dimensionally speaking, because it's like a chain of worlds sort of deal. They find one world where there's no Earth. Like a big old meteor came by and just demolished the Earth. So there's a gap. There's just interplanetary space where that Earth should be. And the Earths on all sides of that world have like different levels of impact damage. Like the Earth was hurt, but not quite destroyed. And so they build like a space station where the Earth is missing. So you can step over into the empty space world and not immediately die. And then from that empty space world, they launch a spacecraft to go to Mars, because Mars also has a chain of worlds, which they coincidentally can access from this missing Earth universe. And then they go through the various Marses until they find one with civilization, or that had civilization millions of years ago, so that they can access alien technology that way. It's a really fun series. There's also a reincarnated motorcycle mechanic. But that's a whole it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Canada v Z9, AVROCAR was a real project that almost sounds too crazy to be true, an attempt to build a real flying saucer. Back in the 50s, during the height of the Cold War, the US military was trying to find new ways to get the upper hand, and that included experimenting with some pretty wild ideas. The AVROCAR, which was developed by Canadian aircraft manufacturing company Avro Canada, was one of those ideas. It was supposed to be a vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL, aircraft that looked just like the UFOs seen in countless B movies at the time. The idea was that this flying saucer could hover like a helicopter, but fly like a plane. It didn't work out. The AVROCAR had all sorts of problems, mainly with stability.
Well, the US tried developing something similar. The Germans tried developing something similar in World War II. Not always a saucer shape, but although I have seen versions of that do work, kind of. They have bigger openings. They're basically based on our current drone technology, the quadcopter sort of thing. But they have big openings for the propeller blade. They're mostly propeller blades. They have to be, just like any other quadcopter drone you've seen. They have to be to generate enough lift to lift the parts that aren't blades. But yeah, I don't know how fuel efficient they are, but there are such things running around, even if they're one-off prototype type machines. It's fascinating. Humans will build all kinds of interesting stuff. Native Atheist, hello. Yes, no BSS tonight. Maya announced that she wasn't able to stream, but on the plus side, we're doing overtime. We're overtime over here, and this video is going weird, unexpected places, which makes it vaguely bad science related. So hooray, I guess.
And speed. When they tested it, the thing could barely get off the ground, and when
it's interesting from a certain point of view how last month I was substitute Tapioca Weasel for a couple of episodes, and today I'm kind of like substitute goddessing, which is fair. I'm more qualified as a goddess than as a Tapioca Weasel, but I help out where I can, is what I'm saying.
It was wobbly and hard to control. By 1961, the project was scrapped. But maybe that's not where the story ends. Some conspiracy theorists believe that the AVROCAR was just the public face of a much deeper, secretive project, and that the military continued working on flying saucer technology in secret. Some think that the US military may have actually succeeded in creating an advanced flying saucer. Project Mannequin is said to be a secret program run by the British and US government, focusing on creating
Okay, secret mannequin, we'll get to in a second. First of all, yay, more Ember. Woohoo! There's a part of me that wants to do more shows. Because like when I do the morning shows, then there's the whole rest of the day. And some days I'm so busy. I'm full of like producing things and going other places and running errands, like getting groceries or what have you. But other days, I want to do more shows. But I don't want to do like another show on my own channel, because if you put out too much content, the new content cuts into the old content's ability to reach viewers, and it hurts you in the algorithm, right? It damages your ability to reach anyone with anything, which is another reason not to do like 24-hour streams, but I digress. But also, I forget the also. It's probably fine. Alex says, weren't there flying trash cans that the US developed? Maybe? I'm not sure, but now I'm curious. So let's look it up. US, no, US. My fingers said typing and speaking at the same time is not my good friend. Flying trash cans. Let's see what we come up with here. US flying trash cans can refer to actual instances of trash cans unexpectedly becoming airborne. Well, yes, but that's not what we mean. US Army trial Nazi concept one-man flying machines. Garbage cans. Okay. It's Reddit. What could possibly go wrong? Let's have a look. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm not playing an ad with copyrighted music. What are we doing? How do I can I open the damn thing? Fine. Let's go back and see if I can find a thing another way. Williams International X-Jet on Flickr. Let's see if we can get that to open. Possibly. Flickr got bought out by somebody. I mean, they got bought out by a lot of companies over. Okay, nothing there either. That's no help. Clearly, it's a conspiracy. There's all these things trying to cover up the thing that we're trying to find. And all we're getting is like flying trash. Okay, here's a YouTube link to the thing that we were trying to see. Probably, maybe. Okay, let's see if we can watch this.
Parallel with the Manpack was the Hoppycopter, which was developed in the United States as a means of quickly deploying infantry about the battlefield.
That is a fascinating gizmo. I'm curious how they managed to keep it from doing the weird, like keep the middle part straight. Like, I get that that's why they have blades going in opposite directions to counter the torque effect, but like, how do they make sure it stays straight though? It must be interesting technological solutions for this older tech. But I want to find the flying trash can. It looks like maybe this.
The flying trash can.
There we go.
But while great fun to fly, these machines proved to be non-cost-effective as aerial vehicles and never got beyond prototype stage.
Is that a Planet of the Apes scene or something? Like, it looks like a Hollywood thing, right? That just snuck into, here's a hidden technology newsreel type thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a breathing mask or a helmet or something, but it just, I don't know. It looks like the warrior apes from Planet of the Apes, the old ones with Charlton Heston. Yeah, I don't know if I believe that, you know, that very easily. Well, not easily, but it could be faked, and it seems more likely to me that it was faked rather than it was a real thing, because like the ability to control that, the degree of piloting, where is the fuel? Like, what's going on here? Spooky says, this is why I put out content every 5 to 7 years. That will make sure that your new content is not interfering with your old content. Absolutely.
Super soldiers. According to the theory, Project Mannequin involved serious experiments on human subjects, trying to enhance physical and mental abilities using advanced technology, even tapping.
Oh, this is like the Matrix shit, like the old programs that we tried to super soldier, but it went very badly wrong, or something.
Into other dimensions. The idea behind this project is that the government was, or possibly still is, trying to create soldiers who could do what no normal person can. Enhance strength, telepathy, and even the ability to manipulate time and space, and how...
I mean, technically we can do all of those things to some degree right now. As I often point out, telepathy is the communication of idea from mind to mind, and we're doing that right now. I'm just using sound waves to translate my thoughts into discrete packets of content and ideas that I can then transmit, which are then received by your ears and descrambled by your brain. It's just facilitated telepathy. I'm just making noises into space, and your brain is turning them into ideas and concepts. That's pretty fucking weird when you think about it, you know? It's telepathy with a technological assist.
How is this achieved? Well, through alien technology recovered from UFOs. Now, some whistleblowers, and yes, there are actually people who have come out claiming to have been part of this project, well, they say that Project Mannequin was involved in experiments with time travel and parallel universes. The claim is that by understanding how different dimensions work, the government could train soldiers to move between these realities, giving them a huge tactical advantage.
That makes me think of John Scalzi's Old Man's War stories, who, incidentally, there's going to be a new book out in that series later this year, I think. I saw a thing, but I'm very bad at keeping track of when new things come out. But in the Old Man's War stories, instead of trying to fuck around with interstellar travel, they use basically a quantum improbability drive, like from the Hitchhiker's Guide stories. It's not quite like that, but it's they call it a skip drive. And the way it works is you pop out of your universe and into the next one over. It's so close, like one electron displaced or whatever, so you won't, practically speaking, you don't notice a difference. But the probability of jumping from one universe to the next is so minute that dictating where in that universe you appear, it doesn't even matter when it comes to energy costs. So effectively, you can instantaneously translocate to any other point in the universe you want to, because the cost you're paying is popping out of the universe and popping into a new one. It's a fun idea, and it's one way to get around the universe quickly.
After World War II, the US government secretly brought over more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians to work on American projects. The thing is, many of these scientists had worked for the Third Reich, and some were even members of that party. This isn't a conspiracy.
Yeah, that part is true. Operation Paperclip was the US helping themselves to recently unemployed scientists, mostly to keep the Soviets from being able to grab them, but also to make use of their skills.
This actually was a thing. The US was in such a rush to get ahead of the Soviet Union in the Cold War that they didn't care. They thought these scientists were going to give them the edge in all sorts of scientific fields, mainly when it came to rocket technology. One of the most famous scientists brought over was Wernher von Braun, who had been heavily involved in the Third Reich's rocket program and later played a major role in the US space program. But was there
a major role? He was the head of NASA. NASA was possible because of him. Yeah. That's not exactly a conspiracy. It's just history.
There more to Operation Paperclip than your more conventional scientific pursuits. There have always been rumors that these scientists were also involved in more controversial research, like work in mind control, psychological warfare, and possibly even experiments related to alternate dimensions and
okay, there's a couple things here. The first is there were some experiments in what we might consider to be oddball physics, because all of physics as we understand it today was oddball physics at the time. Like from the 1890s through the 1950s, everything physicists was coming up with sounded like an occultist conspiracy theory, because nobody understood these things. You know, it sounded weird. Even Einstein pointed out that a lot of the theories that he himself was working in sounded freaking weird, because they are weird, but that's neither here nor there. A second factor to keep in mind is that there was a lot of propaganda about the Nazi scientists working with occult forces to try to win the war. There is some truth to those rumors, but remember, it was also propaganda. It was meant to make them sound weird and, more importantly, not true Christians. So it was okay to kill them. Propaganda. And a lot of that propaganda, that label of weird spiritual occultist making deals with demon sorts of stuff, carried over because they were the same scientists. So we've got two different things converging on this group of people who are exploring some genuinely new frontiers in science, being labeled as occultist weirdos doing demonic things from two different cultural directions. Titan says all physics is oddball physics. Have you seen the universe? And that is a valid point, Titan. This universe does some weird. I mean, we take big old clouds of fucking hydrogen, collapse them under their own weight until they do nuclear fusion, and then just alchemy the whole rest of the periodic table out of that. It's fucking weird.
Parallel realities. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP, was and is very controversial to this day. Officially, HAARP was a research program in Alaska designed to study the ionosphere. It used a huge array of antennas to send high-frequency radio waves into the ionosphere. Scientists hoped this research could help improve communication systems, navigation, and weather prediction, but there were a lot of people.
Now, this is one that we've been hearing about since the Coast to Coast AM days with Art Bell even. Oh, HAARP, with they're messing around with the ionosphere. They're going to shift the whole Earth into a parallel dimension or something, or summon aliens, or who the fuck knows? That's not how that works, but pop off.
People who were highly skeptical about this. HAARP became a target for tons of conspiracy theories, mainly
tinfoil hat. Oh, I really wish I'd grabbed my hat before this. Oh, for those of you joining us now, my tinfoil hat is way over there and I can't reach it right now. Oh, but I wish I had it. And also, hit the subscribe and ring the bell so that you're earlier next time and you know what the hell I'm talking about.
That it was a secret government project designed to control the weather, cause earthquakes, or even manipulate people's minds. Others took it a step further even, suggesting that HAARP was being used to open portals to other dimensions or parallel realities. The idea behind these theories is that by bombarding the ionosphere with radio waves, HAARP could somehow tear open the fabric of space-time or create wormholes that connect our world.
With radio waves, sure. I mean, little did you know, you thought you were listening to an oldies station, but actually it's a gateway to another dimension where it is the oldies, probably, or something.
To alternate realities. Some theorists believe that HAARP was trying to tap into these other dimensions for military reasons, maybe to gain access to advanced technology or even to communicate with beings from other realities. I mean, if you're dipping into other realities and tearing into them, why not talk to the people there? You probably have a lot of questions to answer for them. The Montauk Project, a supposedly
or they would have questions for us. I mean, that's how most alien encounter stories go. Like whether they're aliens from Alpha Centauri or aliens from the next dimension over, everybody wants to know about the first prime number, the first 10 or 12 or whatever, or the Fibonacci sequence or whatever. Like that's always the first questions, right? Which is weird because which numbers are prime depends on the numeric base you're using. So it's not universal, right? Like if you ask a Babylonian who uses a base 12 system and can count to 12 on one hand because it's an objectively better mathematical system, you're going to get different sets of prime numbers. But details.
Top secret government program that may or may not have been part of the inspiration for Stranger Things. It's said that this project took place at Camp Hero, an old Air Force base in Montauk, New York. After the success of the Philadelphia experiment, which allegedly involved making a
the success of the Philadelphia. Yes, we all know the Philadelphia experiment was notoriously a success.
naval ship invisible and accidentally teleporting it, the US government decided that they were going to try to push the boundaries even further. The Montauk Project worked in advanced psychological warfare techniques, mind control experiments, and the creation of a time portal, supposedly. The project supposedly involved
a time portal. We can't demonstrate it, though. We have no evidence. Just supposedly a time portal. I love it.
Abducting young people and...
You know, I still have that photo pulled up. Let's take a look at it again for the new people just joining us. I supposedly had access to a time portal too, because here's a photo from June 29th, 2011 that clearly shows a newspaper. How else would you prove time travel? Photo of a newspaper dated December 5th, 2011, almost 6 months in the future. Clearly, I had access to a time portal. What other possible explanation could there be? Yet, I forgot to look up the damn lottery numbers. Wouldn't you know? Oh, I'm such a flibbertigibbet sometimes. I had one job to go find a sports almanac or something. Nope. Just a photo of the date of the newspaper. Fucking hell, Ember.
Using them in these experiments with the goal of harnessing psychic abilities for the military. Some stories even go that the project managed to open portals to other dimensions, allowing beings from alternate realities to enter into ours. According to some conspiracy theorists, these experiments were so dangerous that they eventually had to be shut down, with the base's records and evidence erased or buried deep in classified government files. Project
Yes, better to, if you're trying to hide information, put them in files, right? You bury them in files. You don't destroy the files. You don't shred the files. You don't bury them literally somewhere where they can. No, just put them in files. Just write them up in excruciating detail. You know, dot every T, cross every I, all those things. But don't delete the information. No.
Looking Glass is a conspiracy theory that the government developed technology capable of seeing into the future and even observing events in parallel realities. Supposedly, the project was part of a bigger effort by the government to understand and possibly manipulate time and reality itself. The technology, often described as a device or machine, allowed users to peer into different timelines or dimensions, giving them glimpses of potential futures or alternate versions of reality. And by observing these different realities, the government could predict events before they happened and influence the course of history. And they're kind of like Paul Atreides and Dune. Some versions of the theory claim
yes, the what is it? It's been so long. Kwisatz Haderach, something like that. Pronouncing things from books is not my forte, and I haven't seen the damn movies because, once again, I'm poor. But also, long movie. Honestly, the story is really long and pissed me off a little bit because we open with freaking divine prophecies and futuristic churches and space knights and shit, and then we spend the next eternity on Tatooine. Like, we stay on one planet, and it's the most boring fucking planet. I felt ripped off. So, you know, in fairness, I didn't give the story a fair shake the first time through because I wanted the universe, and I got a sand dune. It was a little frustrating, but it was an interesting idea. Like the prophesied one in several different prophecies, and he like can foretell the future and all this shit. It was pretty neat. In fairness, pretty neat. What the fuck project was he talking about where he mentioned that? See, sometimes I tangent so hard, and you know, in fairness to me, I've been up a long time, but sometimes you tangent so hard you lose track of where the track you tangented off of came from.
that the device could even allow people to travel between these alternate realities. Imagine being able to see how different decisions would play out across different timelines or accessing advanced technology from a parallel universe.
That reminds me of Roger Zelazny's Amber Stories, where there's I don't want to explain the entire freaking world building thing of these stories because it would take up the whole damn show. But there's this family of super beings who have the ability to walk across alternate realities. They can just travel between universes, basically. And one of the characters was so invested in military strategy that he would watch the same battle over and over and over and over from neighboring worlds to understand what controlling effectively what tiny little differences in strategy would accomplish in the greater scope of the battle, so that he would understand like everything possible about military strategy. He'd be like, well, what if just this one little thing were changed, and then repeat the same battle? And then what if this, and repeat the same battle? There'd definitely be somebody who would do that if they could walk across dimensions and had a lot of time on their hands.
Why wouldn't you do it? Project Pegasus. This is a lesser known but highly intriguing conspiracy theory which involves time travel and teleportation experiments supposedly conducted by the US government in the 60s and 70s. Now, according to those who believe in the project, it was part of a secret program under DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects.
If you had a working time travel prototype, would it matter what decade it was in? Because you have time travel, but also DARPA. Yes, we love DARPA. Actually, I worked on a program that received some funding from DARPA because they do a whole lot of stuff that isn't CIA black site nonsense. But they do get involved in a lot of these sci-fi conspiracies. They're better than HARP. They're behind all the freaking black curtains, as it were.
Agency aimed at developing technology for time travel and interdimensional exploration. A lawyer named Andrew Basiago from Vancouver, Washington, claims to have been a participant in these experiments when he was little. He stated that the government had successfully developed time travel technology using a device based on the work of Nikola Tesla. This device was...
There's Tesla again. It's so weird that there's clearly a real human, like we're seeing the real human, and it's a green screen, not AI generated, and yet it's making like an AI video, right? Like it keeps cycling. We've heard Philadelphia experiment twice, now Nikola Tesla twice. Or maybe we're in the time travel. Maybe we have discovered time travel and we are caught in the time travel loop. Possibly. Can't rule it out.
Known as a chronovisor, supposedly allowing participants to travel.
Oh, the chronovisor. We covered that in a previous episode of this show in its recent incarnation. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a couple of weeks. The magical time television hidden in the Vatican vault.
Travel back and forth in time and even visit alternate realities. He said he was sent on multiple missions.
That's not what the chronovisor supposedly did. But, I mean, if we're just making shit up, why not?
Including a trip to witness the Gettysburg Address and a visit to the future to gather information for the government. He also said a young...
No, that's not how... okay, so, again, it's in a recent previous episode, but TLDR, it was a priest in the Vatican working with... it wasn't Nikola Tesla. It was Enrico Fermi and a bunch of Manhattan Project physicists, and they developed this television that was able to see any point in time for some reason, and they only used it to spy on Rome, right? Like they went back in time and watched some old Roman plays that were lost to history and heard a speech by Cicero and like whatever. But no Abraham Lincoln, no peeking into the future for some reason. It just, yeah.
Barack Obama joined him on some of his adventures. The Stargate project. Now, unlike some of the projects I've talked about on this list that are more conspiratorial and may or may not have actually existed, Project Stargate really did. It's more of a question as to whether or not anything actually came of it. The US government ran this program from 1977 to 1995, and the purpose behind it? To explore the potential of psychic phenomena for military and intelligence purposes. Yeah, the Montauk Project's not really sounding all that crazy now, is it? Stargate...
Is it though? I mean, okay, so what's the difference between psychic phenomena and psychological phenomena? Because if you can use certain triggers to inspire certain behaviors, like a stimulus reflex reaction sort of situation, but on a larger scale, using, say, subliminal messages in advertising, and can control people's behavior, maybe not in specific actions, but on a larger scale, is that significantly different from having psychic control? You know? Maybe I'm splitting hairs again, but on like the broadest possible scales.
Was specifically interested in what was referred to as remote viewing, the ability to see or describe places, people, or events without actually being physically present there. The CIA, along with other military and intelligence agencies, funded and ran these experiments, often working with people who claimed to have psychic abilities. They figured that if they could train people to accurately see distant locations or predict events,
But why are we letting people claim to have psychic abilities? Why aren't we demanding objective, verifiable confirmation? Like a person, I mean, first of all, we should be testing, right? We should be like doing things like in Starship Troopers, where they have like the cognitive ability tests, and some people can tell ferrets to go harass their parents or whatever. That sort of thing, where you can demonstrate at least a statistical deviation and an anomaly in your neurology or something. But that aside, like if a person walks in claiming to be able to tell the future, I'd want to test that. I'd be like, okay, cool. Tell me something about the future. And how long do I have to wait to verify that? You know, are you a legitimate prophet? Can you predict the future? it's a fairly straightforward test, and you don't have to rely on claims. You could just see. You could just tell me, give me information I can rely on here. And if you can't do that, then what good is this claimed ability? If you can't show me anything that has a practical use, then what good is it?
Could be a powerful tool for espionage and warfare, which, I mean, it certainly would be. In 1995, though, the project was terminated, at least officially. The story is that Project Stargate was ineffective, not reliable enough for practical use. But some believe the government actually continued the research in secret. After all, if even a fraction of the remote viewing claims were accurate, it would be a game changer for military operations.
The Mandela
If only a fraction of the made up, if only a fraction of the UFO sightings are legitimate, then aliens are real. When you phrase it that way, it sounds more convincing than it actually is. Put it another way, do we have any reason to think any of the alien sightings are legitimate? You know, like, context matters. How you look at the thing matters.
effect is when a group of people misremembers a historical event or person. Writer and researcher Fiona Broom coined the term over a decade ago when she created a website detailing her recollections of former South African President Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. Now,
See, that's okay. So that's a whole thing. And, you know, it's been covered before. We've done a special on the Mandela effect specifically before, long ago in the early days of the channel, but we have. It's fun that we have a completely different presenter now, 3/4 of the way through the video, but whatever. Mandela effect, yes, named for Nelson Mandela. A bunch of people did misremember Mandela dying in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever, because he was in the news every day for a long time and then nothing, because he was in prison. People assumed he died because they heard a lot of news and then no news. But nobody, even the people who say they remember him dying, can't point to a specific announcement of him dying. They can't say, I heard, you know, Walter Cronkite say Nelson Mandela was assassinated in you know, Cape Town today or whatever. Like, there is no specific thing they remember. It's just the lack of hearing about him.
Nelson Mandela did not die in prison in the 1980s. After serving 27 years in prison, Mandela became president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999, and he died in 2013. Despite this, Fiona thought she remembered international news coverage.
In fact, I remember him dying too. Was it in 2013? Because I remember doing a thing about it, but maybe it was on the anniversary of his death. I don't know. Or maybe it was an earlier version of me doing YouTube stuff. Maybe it was on a previous channel. I don't know. Now I'm having Mandela effect about my own coverage of Mandela, but I remember him dying. It's weird.
Of Mandela's death in the 1980s. She found out other people who shared these false memories as well, and it turns out there are so many other accounts of these so-called false memories resulting in the Mandela effect. Or maybe, just maybe,
oh, we got Pikachu, we got Oscar Mayer, we got the Kit Kat thing, we got the Monopoly Man. Oh, the classics.
these aren't false memories, but correct memories. What if the people whose memory is different is from a parallel universe and they merged with another universe, our universe? Now, the merge wouldn't be that noticeable, except for where some people
Fruit of the Loom, does Curious George have a tail? Does Fruit of the Loom have a cornucopia? The Monopoly Man again, Pikachu again, Volkswagen. What's up with Volkswagen?
remember the Monopoly Man with a monocle,
Oh, whether the V and the W are split or not. Okay.
or it being the Berenstein Bears instead of the Berenstein Bears. Up next is time travel. Is time travel real? I think so.
We're just gonna say, hey, here's some phenomena, and then up next, time travel. Holy shit, I'm getting whiplash from how fast this video is moving from topic to topic.
And if people can travel from different points of time, what's to stop them from traveling from parallel universes? Nothing, right? Now, there have been plenty of cases of people claiming to see time travelers throughout history, not to mention there's whole articles online dedicated to celebrities who have past lookalikes that claim that they are time travelers. Now then, there's actually people out there who claim to be from the future. Now, though we can't really confirm their claims, one time traveler known only as Noah claims to be from the year 2030. One of the most shocking things that
Not that much future anymore, is it? I wonder if I can find anything about this person. Time traveler named Noah. Because, like, if he predicted Trump's second presidency and he didn't do anything about it, we're going to have words. Time traveler Noah. Okay, let's see. Let's share the tab. AI overview. Noah's claims were shared in a video on the YouTube channel Apex TV. He predicted that by 2030, humans would reach Mars. Technology similar to Google Glass would be commonplace, and the currency would be a mix of Bitcoin and physical currency. Plausible-ish. He took a polygraph. Those aren't admissible in court because they're fucking garbage, so I don't care. Many sources treat the claim as speculative or even a hoax, encouraging viewers to decide for themselves whether he's telling the truth. Oh, goodness. We've got a Reddit urban legends thread. We've got, oh, here's Apex TV, but I'm like, I want to see some specific predictions based on experiences. Oh, but here's a thing. YouTube time traveler reveals it was a hoax all along. From the official Apex TV, Tuesday, Noah revealed his face and said his real name is Jason. Okay, this seems to be an answer to the question. I mean, shock and surprise, right? Oh no, it could have been a real time traveler. Wowzers. Will the real Noah please stand up? Okay, 3 days after Noah, the supposed YouTube time traveler who became a hugely popular fixture on the Apex TV channel, said it was all a hoax, another person has stepped forward to reveal himself as the real Noah. Of course. I mean, it was a hoax, but also I'm the real Noah. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, the internet is so much fun sometimes, isn't it? My goodness.
He claims is that us humans will be able to communicate with aliens. He said, we've confirmed the existence of aliens, but they're not incredibly intelligent. Right now, the government has communication with them, but we don't know it. In the future, we are actually in contact with aliens that are just as smart as humans, although we have many more advancements over them.
Wait, we're in contact with aliens. They're as smart as humans, but we have technological advancements over them. Fucking what? How does that work? Like, I could see making contact with another species, and we have certain things they don't, just like they have certain things we don't, right? Like, we see this sort of thing in cultural exchanges all the time, even in the modern day. Like, you know, you go to, say, Japan, and you're like, where's the toilet paper? And they're like, you freaking barbarian, we use bidets, you know? So there are technological gaps, even within cultures that are in contact with each other within the same species. It stands to reason, like, they might make contact with Earth and they don't have television, but they do have something else that we don't have, or, you know, various stuff like that. But the idea that they would be capable of interstellar travel, but we're the more technologically advanced species, I have a harder time with that than the suggestion that we have contact with aliens within the next few years.
He said. Now, many people doubted him, so he took a polygraph test to prove that he was telling the truth, and he passed. So, is this legit? Moving on to cryptid sightings. Many people have...
Sure! Let's throw in cryptid. Where's Bree? Bree, we got a Mothman sighting. I mean, you're seeing it, right? It's a Mothman sighting right here on the Better Than Ember channel. How cool is that? What does this have to do with parallel universes? Holy shit. Oh my goodness. Alrighty, folks. I'm really running down on batteries. We have definitely done some overtime tonight. I'm going to cheat a little bit and skip to the end and see if we have proof of parallel universes before I wrap up the show.
The setup behind this cosmic wizardry is surprisingly straightforward, relying on a solution of cobalt-immersed kerosene. It's a captivating testament to human ingenuity, demonstrating that we can, in a sense, engineer our own universes, offering tantalizing hints at the existence of parallel ones, because if we can simulate our own universes, who's to say that our universe isn't simulated? And at number 1 is the Anita.
Wait, that's a different presenter in a different format. This is like multiple different videos that aren't even related, smushed together. Wild. Okay, let's see what his number 1 claim is.
experiment, the scientific discovery that proves single-handedly the existence of parallel universes. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing on its own, but it gets better. See, naturally, they had their instruments facing the sky, but then these researchers suddenly detect not one, but two signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. You see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that these rays are passing through the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. So to make sense of this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations like dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, a parallel universe. Essentially a mirror image of our own, but where time runs backwards. This audacious
Oh, I have heard that one. That we were getting like weird neutrino readings coming up from Antarctica instead of from the direction of the sun. And yes, it could be neutrinos passing all the way through the Earth, but what if they were actually tachyons that only seemed to be coming up because they were falling but moving backwards through time? Or something. That's a fun one.
idea isn't pulled out of thin air. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches.
Anarchic Fox says it's all the same person. It's just the videos are stitched together from the multiverse. The video itself is proof of parallel universes. I think you've solved it, Anarchic. That's chef's kiss. That is perfect. And that is a fantastic place to put a pin in this thing for tonight. Oh my goodness. We've been some crazy places. I can't even begin to guess what other madness is in that video. But it's been a fairly long show. We've covered most of the time slot of Bad Science Sunday on top of our normal time. So it's been fun. I've enjoyed myself. I hope you have as well. I will read the super chats again real quick because I very much appreciate those. That's how I afford groceries and things. So we had $10 from Miranda saying overtime. Yes, please. Sapphire Light sent $5 saying, I come from another reality where Dapper Dinosaur wears his monocle on the left, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel is a collection of stoats in a lab coat, which is a fascinating universe. Miranda drops another 10 and says, hey, y'all, get your super chats in so we can do overtime. We were doing a super chat goal. If you're joining us later, we had a goal. We were going to go overtime if we met the goal, and we did. So here we are. Left-Handed Jedi sent $5 and said, don't worry, be happy. And Spooky Bedhair sent £5 saying, don't threaten me with a good time. And that completed the goal. And then we did overtime, and here we are. But thank you all so much for supporting, for helping me afford groceries, and also for, being here. I appreciate that very much too. And also Eric Wanders sneaking in at the tail end here, gifting 5 Emberships. Thank you, Eric. That's always a wonderful surprise. Those went to Emberlyn, Mother of Dragons, good name. The Unlucky Legume, who apparently is actually lucky tonight. Sokel Mikey B, Infinidale, and Fenella's Ghost. So we have proof of ghosts too, apparently, or something like that. Oh, goodness. Thank you, Eric, and everybody. Do enjoy all the fun emojis, which are voted on by the members. There's a bunch of them. There's just a few thrown into the chat. And also the other perks, like early access to videos, at least 7 days before, whenever I can manage it, when I do fully produced recorded videos. A whole shit ton of exclusive member content. There's so many videos that are only available to members. And of course, the members only stream, which will be coming up I try to do at least one a month, sometimes more when I can. And that'll be coming up next week, I believe, on Wednesday. So thank you, Eric. Everybody enjoy. And most of all, thank you all for being here, because like I often say, interacting with you folks, seeing your jokes, your thoughts, your corrections, all the various things, it's my favorite thing in this universe, and the reason I do live shows. So thank you for being here and spending the evening with me, and hopefully having a lovely time. And now, as always, at least at the moment, I will close with a thank you to the top level members, because that getting a shout out at the end is one of the perks of the highest level of membership, the Cinder level, and supporters on Patreon. I appreciate the support very much, and thank you all. And as always, remember, you don't have to believe in time-traveling aliens from another reality who somehow don't have sliced bread, because you are better than woo-woo conspiracy nonsense. That flowed very smoothly. I hope you enjoyed, and have a lovely evening. I'll see you in the morning. Good night. Thanks to the top-level members and Patreon supporters for August: Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkisson, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Kalasia, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, The Mighty Filbert, Hunter Biden's Laptops, Larkwright, Greg S., Neurogeezer, Mage Greywolf, Farhan Salas, Poor Claire, BTF Wayne, Cosmic Kyle, Bomb Poppy, RDZ, Billy Bongsalot, Marty Cameo, My Unfinished Sock, Austin Sims, Tinker Phil, Anarchic Fox, Sabrina Page, Leslie Hutchings, Gazela Mail, Evil Toe, Right-Handed Sith, Luke, D. Murphy, Jesse, Uncle Charlie, Ryan Cultastic, Kurisu Yamato, Scott Duke, Michael Bell, Sumami, Citizen 9, S. Cook, James Nordoff, Hecklek, Velvet, KCA Randy, B.S. Lewis, Tori Swansiger, Whimsy, Kristen Slays, Godless Engineer, Fern Lovebond, Hillhugger, Karen Butcher, Milwaukee Atheists, Booba Sweat, Maya Adkisson, My Unfinished Studio, Ian Chen Official, Introvert Ancom, Tilting Windmill, Christopher Tablante, Robin Webster, Proby666, Jason T, Action Squad, Robert Madewell, Doc Don Hogg, Jester, Sydney Raptor, Stardust Lilith, Jessica the Transmetal Alchemist, Jake, insert clever dapper inside joke here, Nelson, Supercritical Snake, Eli Slack, Geo Sam, Kalasia789, L Trucker, You Are Victoria, Polly Has His Cracker, Roman Weber, Leo Filius, Nikki Pare, Jasper, Yahooligan, and Pinworm. Thank you all so much. I feel energized and grateful that you're part of this community. Thank you.
Just like a spark that's burning